10:30 here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You're locked on to WEFM 99.9, the clean, fresh sound, and this is your It's Your Turn program. Remember, It's Your Turn is an interactive program, so the numbers to call are 457-9997 if you're calling from a local landline, 532-9997 if you're calling from a digital cell phone, and you can also call or send us a message on WhatsApp at 457-9994. The It's Your Turn program is being hosted by Mr. Cecil Ryan and Mr. P.John. Good morning to you, Cecil.
Good morning to you. Good morning to you, Kieran, and good morning to P.John. P.John.
Good morning to you, Cecil. Good morning, Kieran, and good morning to all of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Let me take this opportunity on a beautiful Sunday to welcome all listeners on whatever platform, whether online, on air, wherever you are in neighboring territories and the diaspora. We wish you a pleasant morning and welcome you to another edition of Issue at Hand. We have a particular issue that we're going to focus on today. We have some guests, and we'll announce those guests in due course. I should also point out that our third co-moderator, Mr. Joel Providence, will also be here, and we will be having some guests as we look at a particular topic. Let me ask Cecil to greet you.
Yes, P.John, thanks, and very warm greetings to listeners of Issue at Hand on WEFM and also carried on Star FM. We welcome you very warmly to our program. As usual, we're happy that you're able to join us. And we look forward to interaction from some of you, not all. I know a lot of people listening. Yesterday, I met a few friends and colleagues and comrades, and they are all referring to the program and how they're dedicated listeners. So I know a lot of listeners are dedicated, but I just want to hail up one or two this morning. Gabriel, good greetings, and I hope you're doing well this morning. Of course, Brother Mason, I know he's listening. Greetings to you. And out in Overland, Brother Bristol, greetings to you, and we hope you're doing well this morning. And I give a special shout out to past Speaker of the House, Hendrik Alexander. Good morning to you, Speaker Alexander. I hope you're doing well this morning. And I want to give also a special shout out to Conmat Barnett. Con, good morning, and I hope you're doing well this morning. And so many other folks that I want to greet. Miss Harold, of course, greetings to you. Wherever you are and whoever you are, you know that you are special to the program, special to us. And we are happy that we stand out in your recognition and your Sunday morning agenda. We greet you very warmly, and we look forward. Of course, I want to give a shout out also to one or two other friends. Gemma, good morning to you, and hail up to you. Joyce Lynn, good morning, and welcome to the program. And also, good friends in the Grenadines. I haven't shouted them for a long time. Lorna, good morning, and we hope you're doing well this morning out in Union Island. Yes, so with that, P.John, back to you.
And joining us is our brother Joel Providence. I was thinking about the title you designated recently, but I skipped that. Consul, honorary consul.
Mexico. Well, he's that. He's that,
consul.
except he's not that on the program, but his body and soul is here, you know.
Ask him to greet our listeners.
Thank you very much, P.John. Good morning, Cecil. Good morning to everyone listening to WEFM at this time. As you indicated, Cecil, also on Star FM as well. Greetings. It's good to be on this program. As P.John indicated, it's a beautiful day out there. It's a good day for Vincentians to go out and enjoy all the good things that St. Vincent and Grenadines has to offer. But if you're not out there you're listening to this program, I think we have a good program for you today as well.
So we're going to focus on Vinci Mass during the course of our program, but as usual, before we get into our topic, our designated topic, we would like to just highlight one or two issues of general concern. Cecil, permit me to begin by extending some congratulations.
Before you do that,
Yeah.
go ahead. I was going to mention one or two congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations to all the schools that had athletics meet during the past week. But I want to make particular reference to the Central Leeward Secondary School.
And no bias, P.John, no bias.
I'm trying to do it without bias.
Okay.
And for those who don't know, I just proceeded on pre-retirement leave from the Central Leeward Secondary School, so I'm still technically a part of the school. And I don't want to appear to be giving them preference because we have to big up all the young people, all our athletes across the country. But the Central Leeward Secondary School is extremely well. It was just a week ago on the 26th. The athletics meet was held at the Sir Vincent Stadium athletic track, and 17 new records were set. And the Central Leeward Secondary School followed up that performance with victory in the what is dubbed the All Leeward Secondary School Athletics Championship. This is an event organized by the Chumuka Secondary School, Chumuka Ontario Secondary School. And the Central Leeward has won it now on 6 consecutive occasions again. And I think they're on the road to repeating the double in the inter-school athletic championship. So I just want to extend congratulations and commendations to all the athletes. I don't know if Joel, I know Joel has a particular interest in Central Leeward also, so I'll just give him a chance to comment.
Well, actually, P.John, I was actually going to come to you a little bit because the Central Leeward Secondary School sports took place on the Sunday.
Yeah.
And the day before was the St. Vincent Grammar School. And I have a particular interest in the grammar school sports for the reason being that Lopi House won the event, and I was house captain of Lopi House.
I remember that.
While I was a student at the grammar school.
And you might want to say losing house captain too. Because Lopi never did well in our time.
Yes,
That's a low blow, man. That's a low blow.
no, that's all right. That's all right. But I think we were moving up from 4th place up to 2nd by the time I left. So that's how it is. But it's also important to know that in the 2nd position was Reese House. And I happened to be the housemaster of Reese House for a couple of years when I was a teacher there. So congratulations to the St. Vincent Grammar School, to Lopi House in particular, but I would want to single out the special performance of Keo Davis, who broke a 48-year-old record established by Dr. Christian Anderson back in 1975 in the 200 meters. And a fantastic time, 21.55. It's hallmark, as persons would know that Keo Davis also did quite well last year in the Junior Carifta Games, which took place, I think, last year in Jamaica. You were saying something?
Yeah, I was saying I'm a Lopi man. I could remember you as house captain. And I just want to shout up one of the most memorable athletes in my time, the Ses Maki, and the other Mackey brothers. I just want to big them up.
Yes,
In as much as we mentioned Lopi and Lopi. Every time I think back, I can't forget those four guys.
no, well, especially my former classmate Andrew Juggy Mackey, who was in New York, and I think despite the point that you made a while ago, without the Mackey brothers, Lopios would have been even in a worse position.
Exactly.
Gentlemen, I just want to associate myself with your reflection and also commend all the winners from last week. But I also want to commend and recognize that our colleague radio station, Star FM, turned 15 last week or week before. We didn't recognize that. We should have recognized that and commend them for the fantastic effort fantastic work that they're doing since they came into being. I think it is 2008 in February. And they've been doing wonderful work, and we do appreciate them, especially because they kind of is like a relay for the messages which we carry on this program. They carry it further, so we want to appreciate that and recognize them. Even as you're mentioning, P.John, Andrea, the St. Vincent Beach Stadium, I have a taste in my mouth which is unpleasant. It has to do with a number of what I consider to be derelict-looking trailers parked on both sides of the road leading to the stadium. Not quite, but in addition to the really what I call the spectacle, they pose a danger. Because if you guys, I don't know if you've ever driven there in the morning, early morning, they don't have one. I know one has reflectors, but the others don't have. So if you're driving there like me early in the morning, you have to be so careful that you don't run into one of them. And as I said, they're parked on both sides of the road. And as you know, P.John, if you're going there for the first time, especially, you have to be extra careful if you're driving, even for the pedestrians. And I'm raising it because the St. Vincent Beach Athletic Stadium, yes, it's not fully completed, but it's been used, and we recognize it for what it is. I don't expect to see derelict vehicles greeting me when I enter that area. I want to see a fantastic, if you like, billboard of St. Vincent. That's what I expect to see. And it can't be the first thing I see when I go into the stadium and the last thing I see when I'm leaving the stadium. I mean, that is bad. That is bad. So whoever is responsible, they need to give attention. They really need to give attention. It's that bad. I know it's a project, it's a working process, but even as it is, we can't desecrate it from this even before it fully going. So I'm raising it, hoping that whoever is responsible would give attention to the removal of those what I consider to be derelict-looking vehicles.
Are you speaking of vehicles or trailers?
Sorry, trailers. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, thanks for the correction. Trailers.
I believe, I'm not entirely sure, but I do believe that the trailers are associated with another project that is just a few yards away. And I believe that, but I'm not sure. But I think right there's a pasture where I believe that those trailers can park with some degree of authority and so on, because I think arrangements have been made or can easily be made. And rather than just leave them on the roadside like that, they can be put away on the grass field, just adjoining. And I agree. I think that they should be taken off the road and put, because there's an area where they can be parked as far as I'm aware.
In fact, I counted them all. The last time there were 18 of them. Some were parked on the same portion of land. And fair enough, the land is vacant, so I have no problem with that. Although whoever owns the land may think differently, but certainly on the road. And I do, Joel, I checked in a way, and I was informed reliably that they're not associated with. I think they do errands from time to time. I think that's what I was told to benefit the project.
Yes.
but they're not the ownership and so on is not the project. And as you're saying, and as you suggested, and I agree, they could be parked off the road in that area.
But then, yeah, but this question of trailers and where they're parked is not just,
Generally.
generally across, if not St. Vincent, certainly in the suburban area of Kingston from Camden Park right
Yes.
out to Diamond.
Yes.
And I think it is something that should be addressed. I know that other media officials have actually raised their attention on this particular issue. And I think that it should be addressed.
Should definitely be addressed. So you can't be telling me you're building at the entrance, you're building the Holiday Inn Express, which is supposed to be, a choice facility, offering accommodation. And then you go down, you have such other lovely buildings, the Center of Excellence, and then you have a number of other buildings there. You have Vinci Fresh there also. And then you have OT and Brown. And then, of course, the peak is the St. Vincent Beach Athletic Stadium. And a lot of athletes go there. Schools, in fact, primary and secondary school athletes go there. Well, not only the athletes, but the school themselves, they've been going there for the last 2 weeks. And it is not good. It's not good for the image associated with the St. Vincent Beach Athletic Stadium.
May I just raise, Cecil, something that is also linked with that, which I also consider not to be so good, to be associated with the stadium and the activities that take place there. And it is what I observed on Monday morning, getting there. And I don't know if
I observed it too.
P.John may want to comment on this, but here we have events that promote athletic excellence and so forth. And with athletic excellence, you get a sense of the promotion of wellness and health and what is good for young Vincentians in particular. And then on the Monday morning, you find the place littered with fast food boxes strewn all over the place. First of all, they're not cleaned up immediately. And secondly, I don't know what the arrangements were, but secondly, is whether or not this is what we should be promoting, especially when you think about the content of the products, the sodium content and so forth of the fried food that we have to think. And this is what we have for the children who are the spectators, consuming stuff that are inimical to their good health, while we have our athletes on the field promoting the opposite.
Well, unfortunately, Joel, I observed the same thing. I think I might have been there the morning. I have to say though, usually the guys who work there in the security booth, they do a good job, and the guys who work there at the facility in cleaning up the thing. But that morning, the stuff was there for all to see, and as you're saying, I was wondering. I mean, so many. What I consider.
You notice the fast food enterprises following the event.
Apparently.
And what you need to understand too is that it's probably better for the fast food establishments to be on site. Instead, what would happen is that the children following the event would congregate at the fast food venues.
Wherever they are?
Where
Oh, yeah? Okay.
they will congregate there. There's a massive crowd. The massive bus, transportation going over and that kind of thing. So part of the reasoning behind allowing them to be on site.
You mean the fast food?
Yeah. I understand the point being made by Joel.
Mm-hmm.
But part of the reason for having them on site is the security is feel much more secure having children going right there rather than driving, asking the bus to stop, flap the fast food places. Some may or may not come out, and that kind, and we have had delays and that kind of thing.
Something that occurred to me: can't not the schools work in partnership with local, menu planners and caterers
That's
to provide food. I mean,
that's good for
would that
discussion.
be a good idea especially for the local caterers and the schools themselves, because they can make a money from the schools themselves can make a money rather than the money going out to the fast food providers.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have very qualified nutritionists and so on working with the Ministry of Health and so on, who can make certain recommendations and see how you can convert this into something that is falls under the rubric of fast food that can easily be consumed and so on, and at the same time appealing to the taste buds of the young children.
Some of them, their taste buds have been established, but still, I think I mean, if you look at this thing from a long run perspective, you can make a start, and you can dent every year. You can create a bigger dent, and I think the fundamental concern is the healthy eating, nutritious eating. Certainly for the athletes and for those who go there to support the athletes. I think there's a consideration. I mean, it's a challenging thing, but we have to think.
There's another consideration. These events in whatever school are very expensive to put on. And if you listen and follow, you would notice that even individual races are being sponsored.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes some of these establishments sponsor. So it is difficult to have them seek a sponsorship.
Oh, I
And
see.
at the same time, try to restrict their presence. And
Okay.
that kind of thing.
Well, okay, but I found it very interesting this morning while coming here that I saw for the first time on the electronic display board at Sign Hill, which is also linked with the station, which featured an athlete from the Central Leeward School, a young lady, and it was an ad put out by a sponsor, I believe, of the event. But I thought it was very commendable to see that they were featuring these athletes on the board. I don't have a major problem against the product linked with the young lady, but I thought we have to exercise some care there. But at the same time, it's good that we can feature these people and make them feel good about themselves and what they have achieved.
Well, at least we've raised some concerns,
Yeah.
and there's some possibilities, and a person may wish to.
But I, as an individual, as a citizen, I would like to commend the business houses that are sponsoring these events. They're not just sponsoring the general event, they're sponsoring individual races, individual events in the program itself. And like I said, putting on school sports in the 21st century is very expensive. And we have to commend business houses for chipping in, and it's happening more and more and more and more. As a matter of fact, sometimes I don't know if Lopios was sponsored, but the houses themselves were sponsored, and sometimes some people haven't heard people questioning who competing, Business X or House B, because Business X is branded on House B. I can't make out House B.
Yeah, well, I know, but I would have been approached but I, as a past student of Lopios, to contribute, and I think this is the role of past students as well, if they can actually chip in and so forth and support their school, their alma mater, that would be good.
Yeah.
P.John, Cecil, there are some other I just wanted to raise, if that's okay with you.
Of course, of course.
One has to, well, I have a couple here. One has to do with the news that the St. Lucia Parliament would have passed, given authority or authorization for the CCJ to become the final appellate authority in St. Lucia, replacing the Privy Council. And I think that this has been received across the Caribbean by those who support the CCJ in particular, that with some degree of satisfaction and glee, if not glee, and so forth. And I know that there would have been even comments coming from unofficially and otherwise from people associated with the CCJ directly. And So that's now 5 member countries within the CARICOM who are now signed up to the CCJ as its as their final appellate authority, and one believes that this could have a galvanizing effect and so forth. We have had Barbados, Belize, Dominica, Guyana, and now St. Lucia, and so on. And it then raises the question again as to what is the thinking among Vincentians at all levels as to whether or not we should move from the Privy Council to the CCJ. And I think it is something that we should begin to focus our minds on yet again, and see where it goes. I would like to suggest to Vincentians, as you think about it, is if I may ask persons, I don't have the St. Vincent Grenadines Constitution before me, but I think if you can just, you have time, you can Google it, you can just search for SVG Constitution and you'll find it. And look to sections 99, which speaks to the Court of Appeal and the final decision-making authority of the Privy Council, Section 99. Then which would more than likely take you back to 38 BC, and from there it will send you up to Section 98, which speaks to the exceptions and so on, where the Court of Appeal itself can be the final authority, or where the Parliament of St. Vincent can actually have the authority to make changes to the Constitution without necessarily having to go to, with
referendum
and so forth. So there, another reference will be made, but if persons can look at, if I can just sum up, there is 38, particularly 38B 3, 98, sections 98 and sections 99. And I think that this would bring some, just to stimulate the brain. And then also look again at the St. Lucia Constitution and what gave the St. Lucian Parliament the authority to make that change on the basis of a 2/3 majority voting in favor of the change. So I just say for what it is, and I think that the person should be encouraged to discuss whether or not we should be making that change from the Privy Council to the CCJ. The other thing that I just wanted to mention, well, there are two others. One has to do with our van culture, and I know that it was discussed before on this program, and what can be done with it. And I want to say, against the context of a comment made by Dr. Richard Byron Cox some time ago, where he mentioned about the importance of an active citizenry, and that it's not just up to the government. It's not just for the government, and it's not just for like those responsible for law enforcement, just to deal with it, but that the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines have a role to play as well. And while we have some guests entering the studio, I just pause for a couple of seconds, but just want to add that we have to say, well, what can we do about it? Because there's lots of positives about our transport system, but there's some negatives as well that we got to not only discourage, but we need to actually actively do something about it. And it is for us now to decide whether or not, how do we go about it? Should it be done in a structured manner, or should we have a number of Rosa Parks emerging who can actually take action, step up, and say, no, you're not riding in van A, B, or C because of what the risk involved and what the dangers are, not for themselves but alone, but also for their family members. But it is high time that we do something, even though that The question of the active citizenry by itself is a complex topic, and it's something that may require separate discussion and deep discussion and so forth as we look at it. But certainly in relation to our van culture, it has gotten from bad to worse. And I think that's something got to give on that.
Well, you say from bad to worse, but from bad to being extremely dangerous. And for the public, I mean, imagine I saw a photo of the same, was it the same one? No, a different van that overturned in the, I think last week. And a youngster was actually crying for her mother. It's as bad as that. I mean, I don't think any serious injury resulted, but I heard the youngster, little girl, crying for her mother. She was out in the van too, apparently. And the one that is featured on the front page of the Socialite newspaper, it seemed, and that's the same one that I saw in a video on Facebook.
Yes.
And the same one with the driver of which was sentenced to a certain penalty. And I'm not going
Had his license revoked.
Yeah.
But it's just temporarily by the Commissioner of Police.
But beyond all of this, we as citizens of this country must take serious action. And Jolie called it Rosa Park when we do Rosa Park, when we do others in combination.
Yes.
Because it's as serious as that, and it's as dangerous as that. We have a responsibility as parents, as citizens, as friends, and as fathers, and whatever you want to call it, brothers, colleague. We have a responsibility. It's a collective responsibility that we have. That we must. Why should we surrender to the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 bad apples? It don't make sense to me.
Yeah, maybe it might be a 4 or 5 or 6
Yes.
or 7, but still, but I take your point. And I think you can say, well, when van A, which falls into this particular category, is passing, you'll make up your mind and say, no, I'm not going on that van. But you may be in a hurry to get to Kingston or to get from Kingston, and you may have little choice at the time as what you may feel. But I think, though, that if you say, get together the people from a particular community because vans play a particular route and say, listen, we have gotten together and we are saying that we are not putting our children on these particular vans, these modes of transport. We're just not doing it. So never mind though, that some of the children would rather go on these vans themselves, and then you can find ways in which you can protest and let the vans know that, say, listen, you could lose the bread, as they would say, if you don't change, and so on. But I think that the people, it begins in the community, I believe, and I think that it should be something that they should actively pursue sooner rather than later. Never mind, of course, that it's still also the responsibility of the traffic police and so forth. And maybe this is how you can find the traffic police working with communities, 1 by 1, 2 by 2, and see how you can get some action taken.
I believe, in addition to that, Joel, gentlemen, that such citizens, drivers who drive into Kingston regularly, or drive wherever, I think they can play a role. When you meet persons who are obviously going to work or to school, give them a lift. So you feel you're part of the process of curtailing this kind of reckless driving and kind of preventing people from having to drive in these vans until the vans themselves show that they're willing to improve their practice and their driving, their habits. We can't surrender. We can't surrender. Sensible people cannot surrender to this kind of van culture. It doesn't make sense to me. And I hope persons listen.
Yes, and we'll get some feedback, I assume.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The van culture, certain elements of it is unique and quite attractive. While we try to suppress the speeding, reckless driving, etc.,
the noise,
the other elements we should try and preserve and curate as a unique vintage experience. The few Caribbean countries I've visited, I don't think we have anything like they have anything like what we have in St. Vincent. Yes, we can frown on the speeding and the reckless driving, etc. But the customizing of the van, the naming of the van, for instance, and even the fluidity in which the vans run, not sticking to any particular schedule, that in itself, to me, is an advantage.
Uniquely Vincentian.
Yes. So yes, let us talk about the recklessness, but that unique element that makes us different from Grenada. You've been to Grenada recently, not true?
St. Lucia.
And St. Lucia, totally different.
P.John, I kind of share. I understand where you're coming from, and I would agree with you that those elements, the naming, the names, the way they're done, the artists, sorry, in terms of how they do those things, and something as you mentioned, I would the fluidity,
the naming of the van.
yeah. I agree with that, but we can't make it all go into dustbin with those who are bent on driving reckless and behaving reckless on the road. We can't. I mean, we got to protect lives, and we got to protect people. A certain level of decency. All the things that you mentioned can happen.
In St. Vincent, there's something about driving other people's vehicle. Because even with the persons who rent vehicles, that's another class of behavior they maybe should comment on. There's just something that goes into people's head when they're driving other people's vehicle.
Well, maybe, but it's some things are unique to St. Vincent, and you mentioned a couple of them. But there's the van culture is in Jamaica to some degree. It's in St. Lucia as well, and so on. But we have pushed it to the extreme, and something got to give. Definitely. I just have one little last stop just to mention quickly, and I think it's important to mention it because we now going to be they have a string of activities celebrating Garifuna heritage coming up soon. And I just wanted to, even though that we don't have the scope and time to discuss in fully about the question of the Garifuna and reparations in particular, that I think that we should still recognize the fact that there are a number of activities that will be taking place organized by the Garifuna Heritage Foundation. And I think that Vincentians we should do all that we can to support these activities. There'll be a number of persons coming from Belize and so on, persons of also of Garifuna heritage and so on. And we should look to welcome them, and wherever we meet them, and recognize that they are part of the team that come into St. Vincent, especially on the occasion, that we should hail them up and say welcome and so on to our brothers and sisters from Belize and elsewhere. That's one great thing to say. I just wanted to add that I don't know if I might have mentioned it on the program before, but that it's, yes, I did, 250 years ago, 2 weeks ago, that we had the ending of the first of the Carib Wars against the British. And they came to a resolution, the first peace treaty, but as you would appreciate sometimes with the British, what they agree to is not necessarily that what they say they would agree to is not necessarily that they would stick to in the end, and so they were short-lived. But it's an interesting story to indicate that the Garifuna and the French and the Kalinago, they were living in peace in St. Vincent, and they had an arrangement for how things would operate. And the French planters and so on, and some of the African slaves and so forth. By and large, they occupied space on the leeward side of St. Vincent and so forth. And while pretty much most of the windward side was left to the Garifuna and the Kalinago, right? But when this was acknowledged, even going back, 10 years earlier in 1763, that they had with the Treaty of Paris, when the French ceded to the British, that St. Vincent was special, and that they actually had the Garifuna and the living in St. Vincent on the particular and the western side. But the British were determined to take the land. And they sent in some commissioners and so on to do their surveys and all that, and to draw the maps and what have you. And then they started to work on putting in roads, what they call the main roadway on the windward side. And the Garifuna, who were, first of all, they were suspicious of what the British were doing in the first place, but there was some degree of accommodation taking place, even though that the Garifuna, they had built a link with the French, and including the French, the governor of Martinique, and there was they found themselves that they can live amicably, even with Martinique having some say in what happens in St. Vincent. But when with the British and they put it in the road and so forth, they said, no, this can't happen. And around that time, they had among the chiefs of the different villages and so forth was a young Joseph Chatier, who they claim was around 28 to 30 years old at the time. This is in the 1760s. And he virtually became their leader, I think, replacing his father, I think, who was one of the key leaders in the resistance prior. And that is where the fight came, and they came to some peace arrangement, but it didn't last. And we know exactly what happened later on on the 14th of March in 1795, and then what happened in 1797 and beyond and so forth. But I just thought that it was important to highlight the fact that it's 250 years since that particular the end of the first period of resistance by the Garifuna against the British. And now we come to the point of celebrating another important period in this Heritage and National Heroes Month, that we can actually celebrate the achievements of Chatier and the Garifuna, and reiterate that there's a strong case for reparations for the Garifuna, and not globally, yes, in terms of the Africans and so on who occupied these lands, but in particular in this context, the Garifuna people who suffered genocide.
Yeah. But I certainly, I'm happy you reminded our listeners of the conference that's coming up in this, of course, and homecoming. I think Consul General McIntosh had a good role. He played a good role in ensuring organizing the homecoming. And part of that is, of course, the usual pilgrimage to Baliso that would be happening. So I'm glad you highlighted those things. And of course, the activity up at the obelisk at Dorset Shahid on National Heroes Day itself, March 14. So those things are important. And the month of March is so important, and we always have to, by circumstances of history, remember March, the whole month of March. Yes, Joel, I see you want to come back.
Yeah, I just smile because I remember the Prime Minister speaking up at the obelisk in 2020, right? About this was in relation to the first COVID case in St. Vincent and so on, which was, I think, March the 11th, 2020, and so on. And then he spoke about it March 14th up on there. So we also come back now. This is perhaps the first year and the first March that we can say officially, although I'm not too sure, has the government actually stated or declared that COVID is, as a pandemic, is officially over in St. Vincent? I'm not sure. But
I'm not.
whether they have or not, I think it is kind of sort of universally accepted.
Yes.
Now that it is. So this is the first match.
Although we are reminded
since-
by the Ministry of Health that COVID is still with us, so we have
Yes.
to
Oh yeah.
always
Absolutely.
keep our guards
Oh
up.
yeah. Absolutely.
Yes.
So this is not to say that you must now say, well, say it's a thing of the past. It's definitely not. But this is the first time that we actually come to the point where we can actually recognize that we can celebrate thing without the full weight of the pandemic on our shoulders.
Mhm. And talking about March, well, we know again, March 8th is International Women's Day. And this week it will be celebrated. I'm not sure the extent of the activity that will be organized by the movement here in St. Vincent, but just to recognize that it is an important day, has always been since 1974, I think it was. People have been celebrating International Women's Day in St. Vincent.
Yeah.
So we have to keep it in mind, and whatever activities are being organized, we support those activities.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry for jumping in again, but 1975 was actually the International Year of Women, right? And I should have remembered because my mother was actually the first president of the National Council for Women here in St. Vincent.
Yes, that's right. So yes, we have to pay attention to that and to remind persons that they should go out and support these activities. And by the way, for this benefit of our listeners, we are going beyond our limit in terms of preliminaries. Our guests are already in studio, and those who are looking at the Facebook would see that they're here. But I hope they don't mind. Bear with us a little bit more. We're going to introduce them fully in a little while, and we're going to enter into that discussion in terms of the promotion of Vinci Mass. All right, so just to mention that International Women's Day that's coming up, but also I want to give a plug for an activity that is taking place in Beckwith today. Unfortunately, a young man, I think he was traveling up from Union, and he, according to what I heard, Sharon Olivier was unfortunately he got into an accident, and his case is not a nice one. But nonetheless, folks they've established a GoFundMe account opening already. So those persons who would like to make a contribution could follow it up and contribute. And there's an activity today. I think there's a let me just go to the page and see what exactly they're doing. But I think I read it in the paper that yeah. Yeah, there will be an event today, a fundraising event, a fundraiser. So those of you who are able to go, please go out and support it. I mean, the amount that is required for his medical attention in Trinidad is humongous, and every little cent, every little penny will help. So those of you who are able to go out and support that activity, Paget Farm, Beckway, please give it your best. Oh yes, the GoFundMe, you can go onto the internet and see where it is. It's https://2 GoFundMe.me/9B21036F. Just read it again. https://go.me/9B21036F. It's a worthy cause. So please, folks, if you can support it. It's one of those things that come, Yeah, so gentlemen, we've been going at it and having our guests just looking standing here. I love you, we welcome our guests very warmly. There are a few messages that have come in while we were talking, and I would want to I'll just leave them so we can come back to them towards the end of the the discussion. P.John, you wanted to come in? Or you just
Earlier,
Yes.
I like to make this little observation. You know, Joel was my teacher, and I taught the two guests that we have
Well, you
here.
might as well introduce them.
So we have teacher father, teacher son, teacher grandchildren.
I am being grandfather.
Yeah. It's just so amazing, and they all look older than me.
I'm sure our listeners and watchers would like to know who these grandchildren are. So P.John, go ahead.
Well, in the studio we have Mr. Ezzy Roberts, marketing officer. We have the correct designation at the Carnival Development Corporation, and Ricardo.
Even though we look older, our Alzheimer's is not as far advanced as yours.
You know, Ricky, what's crossed my mind immediately as I'm about to mention your name is something that I have experienced only once in my teaching career. Where you're the only student I know that we skipped from Form 2 to Form 4. That is what just came in my mind immediately. I was about to mention him, Mr. Ricky Adams. One of the most intelligent men I ever met in my life. They are here representing the Carnival Development Corporation, and I think for this discussion on the panel will also be Mr. Joel Providence. We are looking at the promotion of Vinci Mass particularly by artists and other methods they have used to promote Vinci Mass. Immediately, I want to give you the opportunity to respond to the news. I don't know if it's news or the information that about the Carnival Development Corporation paid for about 12 people to go to Trinidad to promote Vinci Mass. I've all reputation coming from you. You managed to set up something looking like a vendor stall, and a lot of critical comments came. So perhaps you could begin with that first and look at the other issues associated with promoting Vinci Mass for 2023. Yes, Joel.
Yeah, if you may allow me, P.John, just to contextualize the discussion on there. So it would be over to them, so I would more or less be listening and asking questions more than commenting. But I just wanted to set the quick stage for their presence here and then allow persons who are listening to the program. I believe that we'll have some time to allow some calls to come in if you may. But I just was on the point from a call from last week, Sunday, making the point about the success of a Skinny Fabulous in Trinidad at Trinidad Carnival with what was deemed to be perhaps the most popular song, even though they did not get road march, came second for road march. And unofficially, Skinny's name was not there officially, but unofficially it's recognized that it was Nyla Blackman and Skinny Fabulous. And most Trinidadians know that Skinny Fabulous is a Vincentian and so forth. So, and of course, both Ricky Adams, the chairman, Ezzy Roberts, and others, and you mentioned about 10 others, were in Trinidad and more, were in Trinidad for their carnival and so on. They will talk to it specifically. But I was only making the point about the criticality of having artists and so on being the ones to create the awareness about what we call Vinci Mass, and therefore how important it is and how central a role that someone like a Skinny Fabulous can play in promoting Vinci Mass, and how even more beneficial to us if we can have another 3, 4, or 5 Skinny Fabulouses emerging on the scene and thereby promoting Vinci Mass the world over. And what is it that we can do to ensure that we have these 4 or 5 persons, Skinny Fabulous, problem child, whatever name you want to say, and so that they can go out there. So I just wanted to start by asking some some elemental questions. Basically, I'm just stating these elemental questions, and then over to Ricky, the chairman, and Ezzy, marketing and development officer. I'd say with marketing, as we know it, that of anything, that you first have to speak to the product. What is it that we have? What is good about it? What are the inherent properties of the product itself? And then also, which is also critical, is what is different? What is different and better about it? And that is what we have to ask in relation to Vincy Mas. And if we recognize that Vincy Mas should be regarded as a relatively complete cultural and economic and experience, and I push in the word economic as well, and I believe that the two gentlemen would support that view as we look at the economic impact and so forth. It's an social, cultural, and economic experience that involves our music, and we have maybe 2 or 3 genres of music or involved in our carnival, our fine arts, our food, and our drink, and it also involves bringing together of people and peoples through revelry, through dance, and social enjoyment and interaction all over St. Vincent and the Grenadines, all over St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Then we will be able to then come together and say that we have a very special cultural experience. And this is what we will be selling in the broad terms, and what we're selling specifically, and what we are highlighting that the gentleman will highlight. But then if we now come to the marketing, who are we targeting and why? And how far is our reach and so on? Is it just limited to the Caribbean or a Caribbean diaspora in Miami or New York? Should we go to Holland and Sweden, wherever, right? How best to create awareness, and what is the role of the skinnies and others in the creation of the awareness? And how best to create that interest? How do we get a buy-in, and what is the role of the CDC itself to create that buy-in? And the business side of the map, and is it just for the CDC alone, or for all of St. Vincent Grenadines, the entire Vincy Mas, and all those who are involved? And therefore, who meets the cost of the exercise conducted by the CDC, and what returns to the CDC? And if we get there, how do we get to a particular point that we can actually get people to come to St. Vincent? If they come here, where do they stay, and so forth? What they do? How do they get from one event to a next easily and safely, not necessarily in the same vans that we spoke about, because you don't want to highlight that. And how do we get their participation and leave St. Vincent and the Grenadines fully satisfied and having spent their money? And we must also get to know how much money they spent in a broad global sense and so forth. How much money they took off their credit cards, and where were their credit cards used? And it's very important, because sometimes we have still people who are still trying to cater to visitors and locals alike, and they don't have credit card machines and so on, debit card machines and so on. How do we get all these things involved? But I could say that what is this special this experience? P.John, you were speaking earlier on about our van culture and what is unique about St. Vincent. What is so good? What is different and better about Vincy Mas? And therefore, once it is clearly defined and understood by everyone, the task of the CDC is made a little bit easier to go out there to promote what we have and to incorporate the Skinny Fabulouses and others and so forth. So I think I just simply ended that point and basically saying to the two gentlemen to reinforce what you said, P.John, by welcoming the two gentlemen to the studio, and to allow them to perhaps hopefully address some of these questions in the format in which they may wish to do so.
But I would like us to begin by getting out of the way the information about what happened in Trinidad. You have the opportunity to just clear it up to the extent that people still have cloud about it.
Good morning, Good morning to my teacher. Good morning to my teacher's teacher. Good morning to a teacher of many Vincentians.
Yes, like that.
Let me first of all begin by wishing everybody in St. Vincent and the Grenadines happy National Heroes Month. We're on the eve of National Heroes Day. That happens in another 9 days or so. And it really is important for us, as was mentioned earlier, it really is important for us to embrace our culture. And this is an opportune moment for us to continue to do so, particularly with the expected visitors to our shores. And I always like to start with good news. And before I get to our side of the Trinidad experience, I also again want to echo the sentiments in terms of the compliments to Skinny Fabulous, who's done well this year. But it is just a continuation of a trend where he won the road march, he was second. He was part of a team that won the road march in Miami Carnival last year. He was second again in Trinidad this year. And he is just one of a number of persons who've been carrying the Vincentian flag on the musical scene in the last few years. Everybody knows Problem Child was a very strong contender for the Soca Monarch in Trinidad a couple of years ago. We've seen Chow Minister and Suraj with their fantastic presence going around. We've had people like Dynamite and so. But beyond the music, this year we were also able to participate in another growing Vinci event, which is the brunch and soca, and we'll get a little bit more to that. But again, I want to congratulate Jehovah and his team. He partnered with Skinny this year on taking an event of that caliber to Trinidad and Tobago, and also flying the Vinci flag in Trinidad and Tobago, and he's doing it around the region. So let me start by congratulating all of the people who are out there pushing the Vinci flag, pushing Vinci culture, and pushing Vinci Mass. I was on a program a couple of weeks ago, can't remember the exact date now, and I thought I had made it very clear that the CDC, taking into account the financial constraints that we have coming out of Vinci Mass 2022, that the CDC had authorized the payment for Ezzy Roberts to be the only person, our CDC marketing officer, to go to Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm not legally trained, but I thought that was clear. And then somebody said to me, well, and I said, the CDC did not pay for me to go to Trinidad and Tobago. And then I was told, well, you didn't say that you paid for yourself. So that means somebody else paid for you, and I was trying to coach it, etc. So let me be absolutely clear. I paid for myself to go to Trinidad.
Not the National Lottery.
Not the National Lottery, no other entity. I have my credit card receipts. I asked people and I challenged people to show that, but apparently I didn't unequivocally state that I paid for myself to go to Trinidad and Tobago. And I just want to make the point. I went to Trinidad in 1987. I went to university in Trinidad in 1987. And since 1987, apart from the years when they didn't have COVID, I missed Trinidad and Tobago Carnival once. That was way before I was chairman of CDC. So my going to Trinidad and Tobago for Carnival is not a new thing, and it is not something on which I have depended on CDC for the last 30 years or whatever, right? And there are a number of other people who are quite capable and who quite enjoy Trinidad Carnival and who will go to Trinidad Carnival. Now, because I go to Trinidad Carnival at my own expense, does not mean that when I go to Trinidad, I will not promote CDC and Vincy Mas in Trinidad and Tobago, right? So I was able to participate, and Ezzy, while he was doing a fantastic job down there, anybody who's in this business knows that it is very difficult for a single person to execute a lot of the things that are happening. So I assisted Ezzy, and I was able to participate in a number of things down there. And then somebody, social media makes a lot of people experts. Somebody said, well, they saw a picture that had 10 people in it in Trinidad and Tobago, and that meant automatically that CDC paid for 10 people to go to Trinidad and Tobago. And a lot of the people who were in that picture are professionals in their own rights who have also been going into Trinidad and Tobago and who love Carnival as a product. These are people who not only go to Trinidad and Tobago, but they travel all over the world to do other things. And it just seems as though, notwithstanding what we said, people were still raising questions. I would like to focus in on something though that hurt me personally. While we were in Trinidad and Tobago, we recognized that our presence at our booths and when we were going to do not only the booth on the avenue, but also at Brunch and Soca, we recognized that our presence there would also have been enhanced if we have what we call brand ambassadors. And so we approached the head of VINSA, which is the Vincentian Students Association in Trinidad and Tobago. And we asked the president of VINSA to provide us with the names of 2 young ladies who are Vincentians who are studying at the University of the West Indies, to come and be brand ambassadors to sell the warmth of our people, to sell the energy of our people, and to help us sell the culture of our people. Lo and behold, I was told that we were accused of carrying the bartenders from our bar in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to Trinidad and Tobago. What then went forth, and I'm accustomed to people lying, because there are some people who their stock in trade is lying. But what then hurt me is other people went on to suggest that we were carrying the bartenders from St. Vincent without checking, because the 2 young ladies in the picture, anybody can verify are not bartenders who work at the Entice bar. But to suggest that we were carrying them, the person made the comment, they know why they carried them. To suggest that there was a level of immorality involved. And I'm saying, and I've said it before, cuss me, call me ugly, say I'm archaic, I have no ideas. But why would you try to drag down our Vincentian women folk, who all they are doing is, and we actually paid them the princely sum of $50 US, $50 US, to be able to come and spend the day to promote Vincy Mas. But you are trying to drag down these women to get at the CDC. Understand? These are young ladies who have parents. These are young ladies who probably have boyfriends, right? And just to suggest that simply to get at the CDC. These are young ladies, I don't even know their names right now, but these are young ladies who we went through the VINSA Association to contract to promote Vincy Mas. Right? And I'm saying, you know, there comes a point in time where your personal thirst for the denigration of the CDC has to be tempered by respect for humanity, respect for our women folk. Right? So again, let me unequivocally say, the CDC did not carry any bartenders to Trinidad and Tobago. Right? So hopefully that has cleared it up. I imagine somebody would say I did not say some other thing somewhere, etc. So let's speak to the question. of the morning.
So we are clear on that, P.John.
Yes,
CDC
absolutely,
paid
absolutely
for
clear.
the marketing officer only to be in Trinidad to do his work.
Right? And I will defend that on any day. Somebody said actually one person is too much
Okay.
for us to send to Trinidad and Tobago. But these are the same people who argue that you don't do promotion. Right? Anyway, years ago, when I started going to Trinidad and Tobago, as part of a then CDC contingent that used to go to Trinidad and Tobago, when I went, we didn't have a lot of media presence on over the carnival period in Trinidad and Tobago. We did a lot of, at the time, a lot of personal presence kind of marketing, right? We started going to, and I must shout up my friend Bing, although he apparently is cussing me now, but that apparently comes with the territory. Bing was able to facilitate our getting onto the media circuit in Trinidad.
And by Bing, you mean Bing Joseph?
Bing Joseph.
Okay.
Bing Joseph. Right? He was able to put us in touch with a gentleman from Synergy. And over the years, we have developed a really strong relationship with Synergy TV in Trinidad and Tobago, and also with a number of other media houses in Trinidad and Tobago. And I remember when Ezzy and I started going to Synergy on a Friday morning, we'd be lined up. They used to have the Friday morning program upstairs in their studios, and we'd be lined up outside. And the people going into Synergy on a Friday morning would be doing like a little charity event or community service events, that kind of stuff. We got to Synergy this year. We've watched it grow from being an upstairs Friday morning program to now being Synergy on the Avenue, etc. And we got to Synergy this year. And while we were standing there, waiting our turn to go on, Shaggy was down there doing his promotion. International recording artist Shaggy was down there doing his promotion. When he was done, Miami Carnival was there doing their promotion. When they were done, Crop Over was there doing their promotion. And as has almost become tradition now, the CDC of St. Vincent and the Grenadines closed the show. After us, there was an artist who came on. And interestingly, the artist who came on, actually, he was doing performances, but he had strong links with Wetty Beats. So even then, there was a Vincentian presence. So some people here cuss the CDC because we are not forward thinkers, etc. But when we started on that program, it was us alone. Now Crop Over is on that program. Miami Carnival is on that program. Shaggy saw it fit to do his Friday morning promotion on that program, right? Synergy, who has been a really strong partner of ours over the years, also offered the opportunity for us to have a branded presence on Ariapita Avenue, right opposite Synergy Studios, which is right where they carry on Monday and Tuesday a stage that is continuously crossed by masqueraders, etc. And so we jumped at that opportunity. Next to the CDC booth, the Vinci Mas booth, was Miami Carnival's booth. There was a Campari tent, and then next to that was the Crop Over booth. So we are doing things, and we are in the early adoption phase of things that are being rolled out, that are being also done by Miami Carnival, which everybody recognizes is a growing hub for carnivals. And crop over, which people always say, why are we not doing as much as crop over is doing? So we're doing those things and leveraging the relationships that we have with these entities and doing them with the limited budget that we have compared to these other countries. Now, the booth that was there was set up on Carnival Sunday. Virtually, the booths were structurally identical. The branding on the booths was the same except for the graphics on them. And then the CDC, in fact, provided additional branding material at our booth. Then I heard that other booths were so much better, and maybe the CDC took the money that they could have used for branding to do other stuff, etc. Right? The booths were, I don't know how many people have been to Trinidad, but Ariapita Avenue is what is called the avenue. That is where people line on, is the equivalent of like Back Street, right? For Carnival Monday, Tuesday. So our branding presence there was from Carnival Sunday through Juve, through Monday evening, through the entire Tuesday, right? So we sat in a prime, you know, one of the reasons people were able to criticize us, because the presence of Vinci Mas was and I'm using this in quotation marks, in your face for the entire Monday and Tuesday. Because every time the Synergy cameras went to track the people coming down the street, and Synergy is being broadcast to
20 countries.
20 countries. Every time the Synergy cameras tracked people, once there wasn't a truck there, immediately Vinci Mas popped out at you, right? While we were there, and I'll let Ezzy speak to the details of it, we also engaged another media consulting team who facilitated our going on 7 radio stations, 2 additional television stations other than Synergy, and we had media stories done, right? We also activated on the Sunday at Brunch and Soca. And we were fortunate enough to be able to have the Vinci Mas flags at one of the prime locations at Brunch and Soca, as well as have a Vinci Mas tent there. People asked, why are you not handing out pamphlets, right? Brochures. That was another criticism. What we have done is we have transitioned to QR codes. Everybody's doing things on their phones now. We have transitioned to QR codes where people can come and focus on the QR code, and it automatically takes you to our website, our Facebook, and our Instagram accounts. Straight from there. I don't know how many events in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I certainly didn't see any in Trinidad and Tobago, where people were handing out flyers anymore. The marketing has transitioned, right? Subsequent to Trinidad and Tobago, subsequent to getting back from there, in partnership with our media consultant, I don't know if persons saw that we were on One Caribbean TV, which is broadcast again into Europe, etc. We've been in Newsday and the Guardian, right? And we're talking full page coverage of the Vinci Mas presence. And as you will speak to it also, but on the way back, due to flight arrangements, he had to overnight in Barbados. And he again utilized that opportunity for us to be able to do some marketing presence in Barbados. I challenge anybody to tell me a year when we had a more aggressive marketing of the Vinci Mas product. when we had a higher level of presence of Vincy Mas in Trinidad and Tobago and across the region. In fact, while Synergy was running during the multiple hours that they were on the Monday and Tuesday, the Vincy Mas, the ticker at the bottom, was also promoting Vincy Mas, right? Just as they were promoting Miami Carnival also, and Crop Over, and also at intervals during the day, and certainly at the end of the program, we had a fantastic Vincy Mas video promotion, which was being run. Now, bear in mind, I say we're doing all of this with a limited budget. We also engaged Skinny Fabulous, and as Joel was saying a little while ago, you leverage your presences, and we also engaged Skinny Fabulous in being a brand ambassador for Vincy Mas during the period, right? People talk about brand ambassadors. Brand ambassadors, they talk about, you know, seeing the big names in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Those people don't come for free. Let's not fool our fact. Those people don't come down there and make their presences felt because it's a happy place to be. You pay for those people to come, and you put them in the best hotels, and you pay for them to be in all of the events that they're going to be promoting and saying, I was there, right? We would love to be able to do that. We've discussed that over and over, but we work within the context of a constrained budget, right? We've in fact again engaged and asked people what is the cost for some of the media houses that travel around and promote the carnivals. We've asked what the costs are for those. So we know the ideas, and we're not talking about $150 and $200, right? So we know the reality of the costs, but what we've been doing, as I said, where we can leverage relationships, we leverage relationships to the best extent possible. But notwithstanding that, I still challenge anybody to tell me a period when Vincy Mas has had higher regional and international visibility than we have had over the last couple of weeks. As I said, I'll let Ezzy speak to the specifics in terms of where he went and what he did, but I just wanted to set that framework, and then we can welcome
P.John,
further discussions.
your own doubts or curiosity has been addressed.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So Ezzy, tell us.
Let me just say, not that I personally had any doubts about
thought-
it, but
yeah,
I just want to
realize.
give him the opportunity to make it clear on this
on this
program.
program, which is what we're doing.
I got that feeling too.
Authoritative, and so we want and definitive.
Yes.
Well, Ezzy, you're going to fill in the gaps, but in addition to that, give us a sense of the success of the promotional activities in Trinidad in terms of what your expectations are.
Okay.
What would come out of it?
Right. Well, let me start by saying thank you to WEFM for having us here, and also for the folks who went from the CDC, who are part of the CDC, that paid their own way to go to Trinidad, pay their accommodation and all their expenses and so on, but assisted with the promotions, because the chairman indicated it would have been difficult for one person to do based on what we had to do. I wouldn't say it was difficult. I would say it would have been impossible to get it done the way we got it done. So I really appreciate the fact that they had persons from CDC who paid their way and assisted with the whole marketing campaign that we did in Trinidad. I'm in full agreement that there has never been another time in the history of Vincy Mas that we have had such presence in TNT Carnival and the subsequent promotion that we got as a result of being in Trinidad and Tobago. The arrangements were made prior to going to Trinidad. We had arrangement with Synergy TV. We also had arrangement with the PR Consulting Group, who made the arrangement for us to do a lot of what we did. And we really appreciate, because they actually went even beyond what was expected and gave us some extra coverage in areas and so on. So we really appreciate what they did. I would like to say that coming out of
that experience in Trinidad and Tobago. We actually have had, well, I personally, and I know other members of the CDC, have been receiving calls from various persons, various entities, media houses from different countries and so on. And the level of interest in Vincy Mas 2023 is tremendous from various standpoints. Individuals wanting to come to Carnival, and from media houses wanting to come to do coverage and do promotions here and so forth. I also, Chairman mentioned the travel from Barbados from Trinidad took me into Barbados where I had to overnight. And yes, I used the opportunity to make some contacts prior to the arrival and was able to arrange some interviews and so on. So we have some coverage in Barbados as well. Newspapers and vlogs and so forth also have article in Grenada currently that came out yesterday showing photos of Vincy Mas and the flyer that we have promoting Vincy Mas 2023 and so on. And we have all this coverage throughout Barbados, Trinidad, Grenada, and outside and also extra regionally. So I am quite pleased. I'm quite happy with how things turn out. I want to emphasize again, it wasn't St. Vincent alone, Vincy Mas only on RIP Avenue are doing promotions with Synergy TV. The other two carnivals were also there. The interesting thing though is that none of the other two carnivals, Miami Carnival or Barbados, utilized their booth for both days. On the Monday, their booth was simply there. It was for brand presence only. There was no activation, nobody manning the booth or anything of that sort. On the Monday, they only utilized theirs. On the Tuesday only, we utilized for the 2 days. We had brand ambassadors and we did promotions. Also want to take the opportunity to say thank you to ECGC as well. We had some products given to us through an agent they have in Trinidad. We provided some Village Ram, which we use at the booth, gave persons as the brand ambassadors, engage persons to tell them about Vincy Mas and to direct them to scan the QR code on the banners. So we have to say thank you to those folks. The point I was making was that neither Barbados nor Miami had QR code on any of their banners. The banners on our booth had QR code, and any angle you go, there were QR codes. We had feather banners that were used at the booth and also those used at Brunch and Soca, which were different than what we had at that location. They also had QR codes. We had a banner at Brunch and Soca, and we had brand ambassadors, they engaging persons. We got contact information so we can send flyers and promotional material directly to these persons and so forth. And everywhere we go, we had the use of QR codes. Now, interestingly, some persons are saying going to Trinidad and set a booth on RIP Avenue is archaic stuff. You know, why go to Trinidad and do stuff like that? We should use technology. But they are not acknowledging the fact that we had QR codes which allowed persons to go directly to our website, Instagram, or Facebook. But at the same time, some of the same folks are glorifying a truck on the road with a banner promoting St. Lucia Carnival, and they say, look at that truck. That's what I'm talking about. But I didn't see the truck on the road on Monday. I don't know if it was there only Tuesday. But what I did, the photo that was published, I zoomed in on the photo looking for a QR code to see if the revelers jumping behind the truck or when it's parked or whatever persons were able to scan a QR code to take them to the website for St. Lucia Carnival. They had no QR code. St. Vincent only had the use of QR code. So I think when persons are being critical, they have to take all the variables into consideration and be fair and honest to the CDC when they're making criticism. We are open to criticism. We are not perfect. But at the same time, I think persons need to be honest with their criticisms. And I'll leave it there for now.
I think Jordan want to come in, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a follow-up question to the promotion. And first of all, I asked the question against the backdrop of being a past chairman of the CDC a long time ago. And having been to Trinidad outside of the carnival season to promote Vincy Mas a long time ago. What I wanted to find out from you now with a successful promotion in Trinidad, which it evidently appears to be, and so forth, and we'll know the success as it translates itself into numbers coming to St. which I think is the primary objective. I want to ask the question, one in relation to the travel arrangements, given the challenges now with no LIAT and so forth, and what is the alternative now in terms of getting people here? Or are we going targeting additional markets as well? And then the third question, and this is on the marketing side now, although I have a question later on in terms of the product itself, is the question is it has to do with clearly when you're in Trinidad, you are promoting Vincy Mas in its entirety. This is not just for shows at Victoria Park. And it may very well be that some persons may say, well, okay, there's a particular show and the numbers remain the same. Or what happened to all the promotion that you did in Trinidad and so on back in February and so forth? How would you respond to the fact that this is a promotion for all of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and all those who are involved in production and promotion and the like? And also, if you can just touch on the question of the travel.
Yeah, in terms of, very good question, because when we go to Trinidad, we not just only promote Vincy Mas, we promote 9 Mornings, we promote Easterval, we speak about the Beckwith Regatta, we promote St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we speak about the boat rides that can take you to the Grenadines, the Tobago Cays, and we are out there selling St. Vincent and the Grenadines, not just Vincy Mas. But in addition to that, while even selling Vincy Mas, we were doing exactly as Mr. Providence just pointed out. We were selling every aspect of Vincy Mas, not just the CDC shows. We are on programs, radio, television, whatever, and we speak of the other events organized by promoters and so forth, and we always sell it like that. Vincy Mas is not the product. The product is not what we do at Victoria Park or the events that we are responsible for organizing. But Vincy Mas, we recognize the fact that Vincy Mas encompasses a whole lot of different things, different events. We call it names of shows. Sometimes we give the dates where they're being held and so forth for promoters' events. And sometimes the same promoters you see bashing the CDC. But we will continue to promote events because we recognize the fact that Vincy Mas is not just CDC events, but all these other activities together combined.
In fact, on the presentations that we do, and not only this year, but for many years, I keep making the point that a visitor who comes to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I just pick the period Wednesday to Wednesday, and I've seen it, a visitor who comes to St. Vincent and the Grenadines for 7 days wants to do 14 events. The CDC does not do 14 events during that period. And we don't want the person to feel that the only thing that is happening is 3 events or 4 events. We want them to come. And at the end of it, we keep saying Vincy Mas is not for the CDC to benefit. Vincy Mas is for St. Vincent and the Grenadines to benefit. And so therefore, while we're there and we're promoting even the other festivals, we promote the fact that during the day, you can do a Grenadines cruise. You can do the all-inclusive events. You can actually go, and I say to people, you can climb an active volcano today, dive a reef tomorrow, and in between that, do an all-inclusive fete or a competition. And even in discussion with promoters, we say, look, we want to push you as one of the great options for persons coming for Vincy Mas. The only thing that we ask is that you give respect in terms of a little space for our culture to continue to exist. Because if we do not do that, and I want to trademark this phrase, we are going to end up like a lot of other carnivals where we end up as a festival of fetes. And is that what we want to do with Vincy Mas? In fact, as you and I were having the discussion on the way down, I recently, somebody was asking about St. Lucia Carnival, and I went to look at the St. Lucia Carnival program. On the final weekend of St. Lucia Carnival, there are no cultural competitions. Calypso has been pushed out of the Carnival weekend. Soca Monarch has been pushed out of the Carnival weekend. Panorama has been pushed out of the Carnival weekend. So on Carnival weekend in St. Lucia, it's all private fetes. And then the Juve and Monday, Tuesday Mass. But if we do not continue to support the growth of our culture, I think one of the things that people need to recognize the generation of the carnival product happens in the Southern Caribbean. The calypsos and soca and raga soca, or whatever the version of raga soca is named, is produced primarily in the Southern Caribbean. It is consumed in the rest of the world, but the production happens primarily in the Southern Caribbean. The steel pan, apart from the fact that Japan and Europe are now going really big on steel pan, when you go to the majority of the steel pan festivals around the world, it is still Southern Caribbean personnel or descendants of Southern Caribbean personnel. All the mass that is being paraded across Jamaica and Miami and New York, etc., all of that mass, is largely produced by people from the Southern Caribbean. And so if we in the Southern Caribbean do not continue to invest in our youth getting involved in culture, if we do not continue to invest in the growth of our artists, then what will happen is we will then also turn into a consumer of other people's culture rather than a producer of a cultural product that we can take across the world. And I think it is important for us to look at that. We've looked at the fact that the soca monarch in Trinidad has died. And they now bawling that the soca monarch has died. But it died largely, and it didn't die this year, it has been dying because it was cannibalized by the private events that were happening. Barbados is now saying they're going to scrap their soca monarch because but if we do not provide the avenue for our young people to emerge through, and people generally, we have found, have put more effort into the growth of their craft when they're in a competitive space. And it may change, but as it stands, we look at the majority of our artists who are doing well globally, and they have come through the ranks of not only the Soca Monarch, but the junior competitions themselves. Right? We look at the people who are at the top of the Calypso game, our young people, and a lot of them have come through the junior ranks. And so if we say that, you know what, the junior shows don't make money for us, and they don't. If we say that the junior shows don't make money and the competitions don't make money for us, right? So we're going to throw those aside and let's focus on the fetes and the events that make money. Then how are we going to continue to produce that cultural product that then is able to be identified as something that we can then sell to the international space? And I want to further address what Joel raised. Flights for years have been a challenge for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we were able to bring on board the Argyle International Airport. Sadly, shortly after we did that, COVID presented herself, and Mama Soufre made herself known.
Too female, eh?
and Liat went under, largely. She's still, a lot of people don't know that Liat is actually still flying. But it's a very specific, it's a very specific way to find flights. But what we found is that this year, in what we've been following and discussions that we've heard, is that Caribbean Airlines is actually looking to secure more aircraft to do regional travel. Inter-Caribbean is looking to secure more aircraft to do regional travel. In fact, I think they already have more aircraft. American Airlines is now doing daily flights out of Miami into St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So we have the advantage this year that, notwithstanding the loss of Liat, we're now served out of the eastern seaboard of the US with both Caribbean Airlines and American Airlines. We're being served out of Europe with Virgin Atlantic, and we're being served from the Caribbean region by Inter-Caribbean, by Liat in a very limited way, and by Caribbean Airlines. So I anticipate that we will be in a better space this year than we were even up to last year. But I challenge our Caribbean people. What we'll do, we look at flights and we look at accommodation and we say, we'll do that later, and we'll do that later, and we'll do that later. And then we wait till a week before and we say, oh my gosh, why is it so expensive? It's because other people have bought out all the cheap options. So while I was in Trinidad, I looked at an option from Trinidad to St. Vincent and back, the Wednesday before Carnival to the Wednesday after Carnival. It was $218. I went online a couple of days ago, it's gone up to $350. But people will sit and wait and wait and wait and then complain that it's $700 and $800. So I'm saying, if you know you're coming for Vincy Mas, buy your tickets now. I think out of Miami, it was 500 US or something like that at the time. So
In fact, Ricky, I'm glad you raised that because somebody has been asking for a good while. Why is it that CDC doesn't set the date for the next 3 or 4 Vincy Mas?
okay. There is a formula for the date for Vincy Mas, which has been set, I don't know how many years ago.
Probably since the 70s, since 77.
Well, I'm not sure.
The beginning, the last Friday
the
in
last
June.
Friday in June sets the beginning date of Vincy Mas.
For 10 days.
And then you basically take 10 days to get to the weekend of Vincy Mas. There are so many different ways you can describe it. It then means that the first Friday in July is the Friday of Vincy Mas, right? But we face a challenge every year, and it's something that we're actively discussing, and it's something that I have raised over and over. Sometimes the last Friday in June means that Vincy Mas Monday is the first Monday in July. Other times, the last Friday in June, setting it, means that Vincy Mas Monday is the second Monday in July. And so therefore, particularly on the years when it shifts, which happens every 5 years or so, roughly, particularly on the years when it shifts from the first Monday, Tuesday to the second Monday, Tuesday, there is confusion. But the formula has remained consistent over time. It is a challenge that I know we have. It is a challenge I know we're having this year. In fact, when we go on to a lot of the international websites, there seems to be some confusion still because they are benchmarking it either as the first Monday in July or the second Monday. It is a discussion that we have had over and over. And it is something that we recognize that we really need to address.
But
as it stands, the formula for calculating Vincy Mas has not changed for maybe 20 years.
But
I
given
don't know
what
if
you
were you present when that initial formula was done? I'm not sure. I don't know when it was initially.
But I was following up particularly the advice you were giving to persons.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be easier for persons to make arrangement if they knew in advance that Vincy Mas was going to be so and so? And if that is the case, what is the earliest you're in a position to give the dates for Vincy Mas?
Well, as I said, once we continue adopting that formula, the dates for Vincy Mas are set ad infinitum. What interestingly,
and when I said, I mean to be able to announce it, by the way, publish.
So interestingly, it is sometimes we become we become victims of some successes that we try to achieve. And I remember many years ago, the dates for Vincy Mas were pretty much set unannounced around the time with the release of the poster and that kind of stuff. What we have tried to do for the last few years is that even during the shows for Vincy Mas one year, we announce the dates for Vincy Mas the following year. So in fact, our dates for Vincy Mas 2023 have been announced and put out since we were having Vinci Mass 2022. The problem is when we do that, sometimes our reach is not as far as it should be in terms of getting to the international media who benchmarking it based on their own rules. So, but that is certainly once we agree that we are going to adopt going forward that position where, and I personally find it complicated, where it's the last Friday in June and then you take 10 days from that to be able to determine when is your festival. But once we agree on that going forward, then we can put out the dates till.
When you were commenting earlier on the importance of the cultural component in Carnival, I find it interesting because I recall a call made to one of the radio stations by a parliamentarian, basically saying that people don't come to Vinci Mass because of Pan, Mass, or Calypso. And I thought that was a very strange comment in the sense that I thought differently, but I also thought there must be a deliberate effort in strengthening the fundamental components of Vinci Mass. So I feel assured having already said that, but my question is, does the CDC have the resource capacity to sort of, how should I put this now? Well, to encourage the basic components like Mass, Pan, and if you mentioned the junior Calypso and junior soca and so on, because to me those are fundamental elements. Without them, becomes, as you said, how you say it?
Festival of Feds.
Yes.
So I'm actually going to tie that question in with a question that Joel had raised earlier on the analysis of the economics of Vinci Mass. And we have been asking at the governmental level for a number of years for us to be able to do an economic analysis on the impact of Vinci Mass on the national economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Because when you do those analyses, then you are able to better capture what is the contribution of the festival. And then you are better able to make an argument as to how much support we need to give to the national festival. Because there are a number of shows that inherently are not profit-making shows, but they are inherently shows that develop the cultural art form that continues for us to be able to have a Vinci Mass. And it is important for us, and that's why I say we need to analyze what Vinci Mass does in terms of the national economy and not necessarily benchmark it on whether the CDC makes money or not. So that is why we continue to seek additional sponsorship. And that is why we continue to invest and try to grow our cultural generating events, I want to call them that, which is our junior shows, our panorama, etc. Now, we've seen what has happened in Trinidad and Tobago, for instance. Panorama struggled for a few years. Panorama is back with a bang.
Yes, I can see.
Now, what they've done, they've introduced this concept, and they got a lot of licks for it. But they've introduced initially, they got a lot of licks for it. But they've introduced this concept called the drag now, where you can kind of do different. Pan is now a lime, so you're continuing to keep the cultural aspect of it, which is the panorama, but you're also moving it and innovating where it becomes a lime. Now, sometimes some of the challenges we face in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is from traditional practitioners of an art form. We continue to say, well, this is how it has always been done, and this is how we will continue to do it, and we will resist any change to it. So a few years ago, we went and we said, let's take the judging of Mass out of the Victoria Park and let's carry it to Little Tokyo, where we can have a different setting. People are more, the judging of Mass is more in the middle of town, because we've noticed a waning in terms of the numbers going to the Victoria Park to sit and watch mass. The next year, the mass people said, now the masqueraders, interestingly, said they had a wonderful time. But the mass bands said, no, we want to go back to park. We want people to think. I said, okay, here's what. We're not making enough
Well,
money.
Ricky, you said the mass band or an individual from a mass band?
Well, the band leaders,
management of the bands.
the carnival bands incorporated,
Okay.
right? So I said to them, I said, okay, I don't think that the price at the gate is a deterrent. So here's what, we'll make the gates free. And there still wasn't any huge rush for people to go to sit down in Victoria Park to watch mass cross the stage. We are trying to push the concept with the pan and the mass and the calypso tents to think more along the lines of what your customers want, and let's see how we can maintain the culture but innovate so that we can make the culture something that is a lot more customer friendly. We see Pan doing some fantastic work now, taking Pan outside of the carnival period, but taking Pan into Christmas. They had a huge showing at the 9 Nights Festival. They recently had the brunch at Love You. That was very well attended. So we're saying that there can be innovation. We are not in a position to afford significant increases in prize monies. So we say to the mass bands, you know what? Challenge us to help you to sell more costumes, grow your band, and then that would in fact be more than the prize monies that we can extract out of it.
And how did they respond to that invitation?
Well, there are still there has been some positive response. There are some bands that are coming out with a lot more active social media pages, etc. But there are still some bands that are basically saying, you know what, we have to be reliant on prize monies, and we're saying there comes a time when selling your costume is more beneficial to all mass bands than the CDC increasing prize monies that will go to 1 or 2 mass bands.
A follow-up. Are you doing the same thing with, say, Calypso, for example? What are you doing with Calypso?
So we have been trying to support Calypso we provide a lot of infrastructure for Calypso, but what we have been trying to say to the Calypso tents is make your tent show more of an entertaining package than saying to people, come out and listen to 18 Calypsonians sing about we under pressure, things ain't going good. Domestic
Ralph Kimber said. Incidentally,
right?
sorry. But
and we found that
Ricky,
when,
I just want
sure.
to say to our listeners and to you guys that
Sure.
PM is in Venezuela following the program.
Okay,
And at some point in time, he wishes to call in.
sure.
So I have to leave before 1, so I've asked P.John to monitor to give the okay. P.John?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
So, sorry, Ricky. Sorry.
Yeah,
go
no
ahead.
problem. So what I'm saying is we've said to the Calypsonians, bring some entertainment back in the tent. And we've seen some of that. We've seen a lot of some of the tents bringing in the almost the after show, where we do some back in times music. Bomani has been doing some back in times music in some of the tents, etc. And we're also saying to the tents, bring some innovation into the shows. And we're seeing some of that happening, but those things are not things you switch on and off overnight. So we want to see some young people coming into the tents, because if it's only older folk singing in the tents, then you will largely attract older folk to come and see what is happening. Whereas if you start bringing younger people into the tents, then they will bring their peers. And maybe if you start bringing a little bit of the party back into the tents, then some of the people who are not necessarily Calypso aficionados will come for a general entertainment experience and be exposed to the beautiful art form that is Calypso.
Joel wanted to come in for a while now.
Yeah, sure.
And then quickly after that, we'll take Ezzy.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I was involved with the setup of Upstage Experience in 2005, just specifically.
And for persons who don't know, that's one of the leading tents in
Tents in
St.
St.
Vincent.
Vincent.
Calypso tents.
And specifically to address the challenges that Calypso tents faced over the years. So we brought in the younger person, and we brought in soca artists as well into the tent. So that is why we had like Scorpion, the same Bomani, Chanel Mackenzie, Sergeant Bread, who changed his name to Landlord, and so on. We had Skinny Fabulous as well being part of our tent for a while. We had Fireman in the tent and so forth. But one of the things that we found though is that the soca artists, rather than let us ensure that the innovation is with the production of the music itself, that the persons felt that in order to be part of the Calypso fraternity, you had to sing Calypso as we know it to be. And that was the problem. And that I think that it pulled out. So that is, yes, while we do the other things and so forth, it's important to recognize that culture is dynamic and things have to change and so forth. And that is an issue that we ran into with the upstage experience and with other things. So yes, we have to do a lot of things, but it starts with the composition of the songs, what you do in the studios, and so how you get your music out, and what is so different and better and refreshing about it. And that is the reality that we have to change. I just want to come back and make one thing very, very quickly in relation to the dates. I believe that the CDC should not necessarily be putting out dates, say running for 10 days or 8 days or whatever started on Friday, because what the CDC is doing is putting itself in a particular cocoon, which it should really get out of. Because if we accept that the product is something that is promoted by all those who are involved in production, performing, and so forth, and it actually starts way before that, what they need to focus on is not so much the 10 days, but focus on the culmination. And everybody knows that it culminates on a particular Tuesday, whether it's the second Tuesday or whatever it is of July. So, and that's it. So you said it's a program of fantastic, whatever it is, 1 month, but it culminates on the 3rd of July or the 7th or whatever, the first Tuesday or the second Tuesday. And that's it.
And in that sense, particularly for persons who have to travel, you would promote the weekend from the Friday.
Well, yes, and so on. But yeah, so you can virtually let you know, and people get to know what's involved in the culmination, and so on. So they can then decide and so on when they want to come, for how long, but they know that in the culmination, this is how it is going to end up. And so on. And that is what we are doing. I have a few other things to say, but I'll start there for Ezzy.
Okay, Ezzy?
Yeah, well, the exact point that Mr. Providence made is what I wanted to come in on. I had 2 points, one about Calypso and one about the date, because my point was we are at a disadvantage when it comes to the date based on the current structure that we are using. If for 4 or 5 years we're going to end up with Carnival Monday or Tuesday being the first Monday and Tuesday in July, and then it changes like it did this year, the uncertainty creates a problem. So I think, in my view, we ought to maintain being able to say to persons, Carnival in St. Vincent, Vincy Mars ends on the first Monday and Tuesday in July, whatever the dates fall on. So you could easily work backwards. But I think a lot of our practitioners are into what existed 30, 40 years ago, or however long, I don't know, that Carnival starts on the last Friday in June. The persons coming to St. Vincent are not interested in when Carnival starts. They want to know when it ends. And they can always determine when, at which point they come in, if it's a week, 10 days, 12 days, 14 days before that date. Because when you ask persons what's the date for Labor Day, when is Labor Day? They will tell you the first Monday in September. When is Crop Over? When is Caribana? They don't tell you check 10 days after sunset date. So I think it's something that needs to be addressed, and we need to make a decision. See, this is how we're going to be selling Vincy Mars, the first Monday and Tuesday in July.
And that can be done now for 2024 and beyond.
Yeah.
And so on. And then remember,
if that is the case, then there's no argument about not being able to publish.
Exactly. So
once first Monday and Tuesday in July.
If that is what is what.
If that is the decision.
So person will be able to set their coming in date based on
and remind that even though that at the core would be pan calypso and like soca has to be included. You can't just shut out, or you can't say
well, All right. Yes, of
Sissoko is
course.
a derivative of
No,
it
no.
has to have its own
Its own-
recognition, right?
Yes.
But yes, so we have the core and so on. The core is being embraced and supported, particularly in Victoria Park. But the Vincy Mas experience is broader than that. It is encompassing. It includes all the promoters, the producers, the what takes place in Mespo 4 weeks later in East St. George, Georgetown, you know, wherever it is, Beckwith and so forth. All of that is
On
part
the
of
beach,
it.
yes, in the
on
river.
the beach, in the river, and wherever it
Yes,
is, and so
okay.
forth. This is all part, and this is what makes our Vincy Mas experience
Unique.
distinctive, unique, and better,
That's
and so on.
that's one of the points that we made while in Trinidad.
So let me ask then,
But
to what extent is even this in? To what extent is the CDC promoting this concept of Vincy Mas?
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yes.
While in Trinidad, we made the point in a couple of interviews that we actually start Carnival the first Saturday in May. That's when we launch Carnival. And thereafter, there are activities every single weekend because we include Rural Carnival and the promoters event that takes place between that time right up to July, like in this year, July 11th. So they were saying, wow, you guys have the longest carnival. But really and truly, if you can't make it into St. Vincent for that 10, 12-day period, and you happen to be in St. Vincent prior to that, you can still get a taste of Vincy Mas by attending whether promoters events or rural carnival activities that would take place between the first Saturday in May right down to the end of July. The other point I wanted to make when I came in, I said 2 points. I mentioned the dates. The other one was Calypso. Chairman mentioned the resistance of the Mass fraternity towards the initiative to have Mass, on Carnival Tuesday, Mardi Gras, through Little Tokyo. Now, we also had an initiative a few years before that in terms of realizing, well, look, Calypso semifinals is something that we don't necessarily need to do in Victoria Park. It's a huge venue, given the number of patrons who normally attend the show. So the CDC took a decision, look, let's work like a 3-year plan. 1 year we'll do the semifinal. The first year was to do it at the boxing plant in Mespo. Second year, Georgetown, third year, Barreling. In that first year, we indicated to the Calypso Association, well, this was the plan and so on, and we started making the arrangements. The technical persons were taken out there, sound engineer and so on, went to the venue to determine where's the best placement for the stage, what's the best type of speakers to be used, and all the technical logistics required. And then it was resisted by the Calypso Association. Said, no, Calypso semifinal should be in Victoria Park. And that year, interestingly, when we actually did it, we actually did the one in Pitani, but we didn't follow up and do Georgetown, nor Barley. But that year, a lot of persons from the rural communities followed Calypso. The Calypso finals had a large turnout that year. And I think carrying semifinals into the rural communities would assist with the turnout, because persons show the interest at the semi-final level, they follow the persons who get selected into finals and they come to Victoria Park. But sometimes persons want to keep it as they knew it 20, 30 years ago.
Let me just ask as a follow-up quickly. I think, I'm not sure, but remind that does the CDC have sessions with, call it consultations if you wish, with the components? And
so
to what
what
extent is there common understanding and agreement with some of these things?
Okay, so
Representative sits on the board.
the board of the CDC has the president of Calypso, the president of PAN, and the president of the Carnival Bands Incorporated as members that sit on the board of CDC. And over the course of the year, we also would have meetings with the general bodies or the executive bodies of those organizations. So we do have consultations with them at least once a year in the build-up period. But as I said, they sit as active members of the board of the CDC. So they are participants in all the decision-making that happens at the CDC level. We used to have, a couple of years ago, we used to have a broader-based annual consultation on Vincy Mas. We haven't had it for a couple of years. Well, obviously, we had our challenges in terms of grouping gatherings. But one of the things we found is that very often you'd put on the consultations and it's the same 20 people or a dozen people that turn up. So when you're looking, in fact, what we did, we started having focus groups a couple of years ago, which again we didn't get to do. We didn't get to do last year because last year, as you recognize, Vinci Mass, the decision to actually hold Vinci Mass was very late. But we had focus groups where we actually brought in some of the artists, we brought in private promoters, etc., and had discussions on what we were planning to do for Vinci Mass. So we continuously reach out in terms of having consultation with the components and with the person. And as I say to people, my telephone number is easy to find. My email is easy to find. My door at CDC is always open. The CDC doors are always open. The members of the components are always easy to find. So anytime that you have suggestions to make, constructive criticism, we're open to listen.
Gentlemen, I have to leave the
Sure.
program soon, but before, there are some email messages. Sorry, WhatsApp messages. There's some WhatsApp messages, and I want to get to some of them. In my absence, P.John would run things, basically. And I just want to remind you all that some point in time, he'll be inviting the PM to call us from Venezuela. But let me just quickly read some of these messages. And the concern from the audio part of the program. For example, Old School Soca, that's a gentleman who is always sending greetings to us also. Gans Byron. So we just want to acknowledge them. Gans, hope you're doing well. There's some others. Earlier, Kojo was, as usual, Kojo saying good morning to everybody, sending greetings to everybody in the studio. Kojo, all the way from California.
Where he experienced snow for the first time in many years.
Kojo, we want to know how you made it. Because another message, somebody saying, well, what is he saying? Good morning, gentlemen. Congrats to Lopi House. Odd Valentine was also an asset to Lopi House in those days.
Yes.
Yeah, so you guys need to.
Yes, absolutely.
And some of this person saying, can't recall how you guys mentioned primary school cricket returning 3 weeks now. So you've said it for us. Okay. Our good friend from Puerto Rico is always locked in. Buenos dias. Well, it's Buenos dias now? I don't know. But he said he did.
Yeah, Buenos tardes.
Buenos tardes. My friend, he's always locked into the program. This concerns a comment that we made last week. This person said last week there was an injustice done to the young manager and her staff of NBC Radio. Those young people are doing a damn good and wonderful job. So they need support and encouragement instead of pulling down them. Let us continue to let the young people fly like eagles. I thought NBC is a national and independent radio station and not a political one. Gentlemen, this doesn't really the comment I made last week where I was making a comment, and we have been, and Lance for the Week's called and made a point strongly that there are some media houses which take material from the program, this program, and do not acknowledge. And instead what they say, like they would say, Prime Minister said on the radio on Sunday, without saying it came from which program and which radio station. And regardless to what media house you are, whether it's a national or whatever it is, this has nothing to do with being political or not. The source is this program and this station. If you don't carry materials from it, fine. But once you carry material, you have to acknowledge it's basic ruling right in. Well, we all know that. So I'm not sure what that person was referring to. Basically, nobody was pulling down anybody. P.John, were you pulling down anybody?
Definitely we were not.
Nah.
And we support all the young people working at NBC Radio. Just that we acknowledge. It's just that we choose to acknowledge that they do not acknowledge the source of the news, their news, especially when it comes from this program and the
program.
station.
And the proper way
Simple.
to write news is to acknowledge your sources. Simple and basic. So there's no defense of that. So I'm not sure what that person was trying to say. This person was commenting on the driving habits of we were talking about. Good morning, panel and host. I concur with all you guys, all your opening remarks, observations, concerns. It is my hope now, sooner than later, that the recklessness exhibited by some of our public transport practitioners will be addressed soonest. There is already a working structure in place for tour operators during the tourist season. It is really time for strong rules to be put in place for someone to be qualified as a public transport driver. That was in respect to the points we were making.
Bad
earlier.
culture, yeah.
The reckless. There are many other comments where I think they're going to take up a lot of time, so I won't bother because we are kind of limited by time already. So, P.John,
You have to ask
well, I have to
technician
leave.
to come in and assist.
What's that?
The technician have to come in and assist with the
Oh, you mean,
taking the car.
okay, I'll let him know that. So go ahead, P.John.
Yeah, so I think as you wanted to make another point or earlier.
I made the 2 points that I had. It was the Calypso and the dates. Yeah, but I just want to add though, as you have me on now. We often see on social media a number of ideas, posts will push out ideas and so on, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But a lot of these ideas are things that the CDC have discussed, whether from a shows and marketing level. We have a committee, shows and marketing committee, will come up with some ideas, they send forward to the board of directors. The board will discuss them, like the ideas. We had a number of things listed for marketing of Vinci Mass for last year and this year that we were unable to implement.
Well, maybe Eddie, you should be able to put them out and let the people know that you're discussing that.
Yeah, a lot of these, for example, we see the idea of bringing in social media influencers, bringing influencers from whoever they identify, sports personalities or superstars in whichever field, and suggest that we bring persons like those in. We have a persons who cover different carnivals, like an entity, for example, like Trini Jungle Juice, which I've been in discussion with them. We have had email conversation, I have quotations from them for what we can do for Vinci Mass. So it's not like we don't know about these things. A lot of them. The restrictive issue here is finance. A lot of times we would like to do things, but we don't have the budget to allow us to do them. And sometimes when for example, let me just refer to Trinidad again. When we would have gone to Trinidad and the type of promotion that we were able to get done with a very, when I say very, very limited budget compared to what Barbados, Miami, even St. Lucia Carnival that had a ban on the back of a truck. The type of budgets that they work with, we don't have that luxury. So a lot of time in that ideas we don't have the money to implement the ideas that we have. So I just wanted to make that point. And even in terms of manpower, there are none of those carnivals. 3 other carnivals did promotions in Trinidad, Miami, Barbados, and St. Lucia. And none of them had one individual person that they sent to do it. It's not humanly possible to have one individual going to a country to do marketing initiative for a carnival, but we had no choice. CDC could only have afforded one.
How much collaboration is there between the Tourism Authority and the CDC when it comes to promotion of Vinci Mass?
So the regional and international marketing budget for Vinci Mass resides at the Tourism Authority, at the SUG Tourism Authority. So whenever we do regional or international marketing, it is done in conjunction with the SUG Tourism Authority. So that, and where we can collaborate, we do collaborate. Like I've been on programs before where they were doing promotions for St. Vincent and the Grenadines in general, and we were able to get in on those and do additional promotions for Vinci Mass in particular. I just want to say, one of the things that we found coming out of a lot of the feedback that came out of Trinidad and Tobago, done by people from Trinidad and Tobago, is that the festival itself has become very much of the same. And so we have to be careful in
sorry, Ricky, you mean the
Sure.
festival in Trinidad?
in Trinidad and Tobago has become very much of the same. And so we have to be careful in St. Vincent and the Grenadines that while we adopt some of the things that we see from other regional carnivals, where it is practical for us, that we do not adopt it at the expense of losing our uniqueness of Vincimas. Because other than that, and people recognize the importance of carnival, where the tourism product is concerned and where the national economies are concerned. Guyana now has 2 carnivals. So they, in the last 3 or 4 years, implemented a second carnival in Guyana. Tobago now has their own carnival, separate and distinct from Trinidad and Tobago carnival, right? We see the growth of the carnival product and the investment that is being put in Jamaica. We see in North America, almost every year you hear of another carnival coming up on the scene. Europe is beginning. So people are recognizing that festivals are very strong drivers of the economic activity and of your tourism space. And so we have to ensure that we continue to invest in our Vincimas. Otherwise, we will become just another one of the 40 or 50 global carnivals that take place. And in fact, we're seeing people are taking the carnivals offshore now onto the Uber Soca cruise and to different cruises and packages. So they're even taking it off island and now doing their own mini carnivals in effect, traveling around. So and that only happens because people recognize that there is a significant benefit to the festival tourism. Look, St. Lucia is back this year with their jazz festival in a big way. Tobago is back with their jazz festival again in a big way. So we are competing in that space. And there's a group that travels basically the world following carnivals. And so we have to ensure that we're targeting that group where they are in the space that they are, but that while we're targeting that group, when they come to Vincimas, they have a unique experience that says to them that this has to be on our annual calendar. Because if we're going to the same places and seeing the same things all the while, what makes St. Vincent and Vincimas different and unique? And so how can we continue to maintain there's some traditional aspects of our culture that are very powerful. The warmth of our people, the multi-island destination, etc., that we need to couple with the Vincimas product so that when they come, they maintain this on their annual list of calendars that they must visit.
Okay. Perhaps you could take some calls in the meantime. The number to call is 457-9997. That's our regular landline. And our WhatsApp number is 457-9994 to get on.
Yes.
Okay. So in the meantime, as he has a point.
Mr. Providence asked me earlier on to mention some of the things that we had, because I did make a general statement. So I just want to, apart from the influences on like Trini Jungle Juice, which I mentioned, we also had on the table possibility of doing carnival promotions in Atlanta. Last year, Skinny Fabulous was the Grand Marshal for that carnival. You'd been more or less honored there. And we thought it would be fitting and good to be in with Skinny on that carnival, Atlanta Carnival. We were unable to do so. We also had relationship with Baltimore Carnival. In 2020, they had no carnival in Baltimore. due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and they had to reach out to the CDC. Shortmus, who is closely related to the organizers of the carnival, he has a mass band there, and he reached out to the CDC for us to do something virtual for Baltimore Carnival. What we did went beyond their expectation. We actually set up a stage, set up a program, Mass, Calypso, Steel Pan, the full works, and it was broadcasted live in Baltimore. And they were quite happy with what we did, and they offered to have Vincy Mass as part of Baltimore Carnival in 2020, whenever we resume. Last year, we would have liked to go to Baltimore. We had all the figures, all the breakdown as to the budget, what it would cost. We weren't able to go. We also had Miami Carnival. Through Synergy, Chairman also mentioned an excellent relation that we have with Synergy. They were granted rights to broadcast Miami Carnival 2 years consecutively. They did it, and we weren't able to go. In the first year, we were actually able to just advertise. We ran Vincy Mass promotion during the live coverage and so forth. And again, we were the only carnival that did that. But I didn't hear anybody say, well, that was a good thing that we were able to advertise Vincy Mass in Miami Carnival via Synergy. But last year, when we weren't able to either go or even to advertise on the same platform, persons went on social media. They said, well, look, we have Vincy music playing in Miami Carnival big, and no presence of Vincy Mass. But the previous year, everybody was silent, But we have those and many others that are on the table. Barbados, we could do promotions in Barbados. We did something with Spice Mass last year, and so forth. There are a number of options that we have available to us. Discussions have already begun. We have budgets. Once we get the funding, we'll be able to hit the ground running.
Let me take a short call from this caller. Yes, good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Good day, brother P.John, and your guest there, Mr. Ezzy Roberts.
Yes, sir.
And
Good day.
Yes, sir. Bunga Shaka here.
Yeah, Bunga Shaka.
And you're the brother Ricardo. Good stint you all did in Trinidad. You got this the other socials and so on, but you all did as much good as you all could. Can't do much better. Can't do resources. Yeah, give thanks, and I'm glad I catch Cecil. Cecil, I'm glad you talk about those trailers at the Diamonds.
Cecil had to leave early.
Oh, because I leave for one, so I say I sent to get me because still got 10 minutes. What going on? I tell you, Cecil, they do Diamonds in the Peter. It's 1 o'clock, and leave 10 minutes before.
And we anticipate the call from the Prime Minister who's in Venezuela. So
yeah, no, so I'm glad you talk with. I send you all some pictures when you all was talking. I went down the river road again by Stony Ground Bridge to show those trailers. I sent you 2 pictures to show the kind of grass growing around it. Tourists who pass up there. The other day I was going to classes, some children running up and down, vehicles passing, one of them actually slamming a kind of way into the shoulder part of those trailer bed. We need to, I hope Comet could talk about it. We need to get serious with this thing, right? Tourists who come up on that side, go to the Botanic Gardens, okay? I usually chat with them if I go in down and see them and give them a direction, right? So we need to speed up with that. See National Hero Day. P.John, I want we start changing some of these schools' name, right? Like Central Leeward School, Chumika, and all these things. Some of them have some colonial names because some of these villages or so on were named after colonial people. So I think the one in Leeward we used to teach.
Bongo, I would really prefer if we keep it to carnival promotion for the time being.
Yeah,
as we have an entire month to deal with heritage club, heritage issues.
Okay, so but I just we need to change, and I want to put your name foremost for that Central Leeward School.
Okay.
Mr. John Secondary School or whatever, P.John Secondary School, right? But I'm glad you all promoting carnival in a all the time, and it's very timely and everything, captivate all those carnivals.
Respectfully bow out for the Prime Minister, please, because he had to distance.
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
Thank you very much. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, P.John.
Yes, sir.
Comrades.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah.
I've been listening to you. I'm in Caracas for some events for the 10th anniversary of the death of Commander Hugo Chavez. I want to make an input into this matter, which is being discussed. First of all, Ricky, I just don't understand how anybody could be critical of the chairman of the CDC being part of a promotion team and paid for by the CDC or any other state agency to go to help to deal with the marketing of Carnival in Trinidad and Tobago. And I don't think that you should be defensive. I don't think that it is right and proper for you to go and do the work for the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines through the CDC, and that you have to pay your own money, even though you go normally to enjoy Carnival. On this occasion, you went expressly, primarily, if not exclusively, to do work for the Carnival Development Corporation. And you should not feel defensive about having the CDC provide the funding for you to have gone. I don't think that we must allow a tiny group of critics to undermine what is essentially good governance arrangements. I don't know what is the basis of the criticisms. What is the basis of the criticism?
Well, PM, let me just start by saying it wasn't that if the CDC were in a position to do it that I wouldn't
No,
have
it's
done
not a
it. But
question.
yeah,
The CDC, the CDC or some other agency of government must be in a position to pay for the chairman of the Carnival Development Corporation to go to Trinidad as part of 2023 Carnival in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. If that is the decision of the board, duly legally constituted, that is what you must do. What is the basis of the criticism?
well, I don't know.
Is the basis of the criticism that because CDC or the other entities money, that you mustn't go ahead and pay for the chairman to have it promoted?
Well,
Have the carnival promoted? I don't see the connection between those issues.
Yeah, that is one of the things that was articulated. And as I said, if
But Ricky, please, as the prime minister of the country, I will tell you that you must not allow those kinds of parochial criticisms to get you or the CDC not to do things which are within the proper frame of good governance and proper expenditure of the CDC. Now, in relation to the monies which are owed, as you know, that payments were made to the entities, mass, the Calypsonians and the steel band, the association, the pan players for Panorama. You know that those payments were made, and that there are other monies which are outstanding. Is that's the case?
Yes, that is the case. So all of the components that prize money were paid.
Yes, but there are other debts which you have from last year.
Correct.
No, you know, and there's nothing wrong for you to have said it, that you came to cabinet. The Minister of Culture asked that you come to cabinet, you and your team, to make a presentation in relation to the cabinet approving sums of monies to have these debts paid. I was in the chair, and I indicated that the material which was before the cabinet was insufficient for me to advise the cabinet that this is a matter which should be favorably considered. Now, as you know, among the material which was not present was something which I considered which ought to have been, that is to say, a plan required under the Act within 3 months of the beginning of your financial year, which really should be January, but you have been operating as though it is from August the 1st. And that was not presented. And I said, let us have that presented to see what is your plan. What are you intending to spend before we approve something? In other words, I wanted the Carnival Development Corporation to proceed to comply with that relevant provision of the act. Wasn't that the position?
Yes, that was the position.
Fine. And you have
and
subsequently done
yes.
that.
Yes.
And as a consequence, I have indicated to the cabinet, yes, we will now proceed to make the arrangements to provide the money, the CDC, to pay those outstanding debts. Now, I want to give an indication to the general public as to how these matters are done. But you going to Trinidad, you should not be diffident about requesting that when you were going as part of this team with SC, that your ticket should have been paid, and wherever you're staying in Trinidad, I don't know if you're staying with any friend or what, but there's a per diem for your expenses, and that should have been paid. Now, let us make all the truth come out, all the facts. Look, we in cabinet acted properly, because I'm not going to ask the cabinet to give favorable consideration if the CDC did not comply with what I considered to be an important dimension of your obligations. And you agreed with that. And you went back and you sent in subsequently the information, you and your team.
Yes, we did.
And then the cabinet has acted. I don't know if that has been communicated to you as yet.
I know the latest thing I had is that it was being looked at. I'm very happy to hear
Yes,
that
yes.
that the approval
Okay,
has been
fine.
granted.
Yes. Now, has the CDC paid you for your small stipend on a monthly basis for the last several months?
No, we've not been able to pay any board fees for the past.
Okay. I want you to give the indication to the public how much money, how much stipend do you get as chairman of the CDC monthly? You're required to get. How much is approved for you to get?
$1,250. General board members get a grand total of $250 per month.
You hear what it is, P.John?
Yes.
I want people to know the money, so that this talk about Ricky Adams making a whole heap of money off of CDC. The man is not even getting the small stipend as chairman. P.John?
Following.
No. I want to make a defense of the person and character. He doesn't really need me to do it, but I'm obliged to do it in the light of some of the traducing which this young man has been getting. Ricky Adams was born into the creative arts, born into carnival, born into dance, born into music. His father, Dr. Edgar Adams, I don't know if you know this, while he was a student in England, I'm talking about Dr. Adams, of no blessed memory, was a professional dancer. Did you know that, P.John?
Yes, definitely.
He danced in Britain, through Europe, and in Greece in order to help him to pay his university fees. Just as a joke, a side joke, when Dr. Adams was into his late 60s, early 70s, he could still go back on his back with a glass of water on his forehead.
Yep.
Eh?
Yep.
I have witnessed
The
that.
man was still limber. No. Ricky Adams, in the year when you taught him P.John, but when he went into sixth form, he did 4 subjects plus his communication studies: physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics. He came third in that year in his GCE, in the GCE A levels. In those days, there were 2 island scholarships, as they were called, but there was a special scholarship for engineering, which is the one he got. But he wasn't yet to get it. He had to be registered already at the university, but because the results had come late and the time frame, I was practicing as a lawyer, and I knew the people in the engineering faculty in Trinidad. And within 24 hours, 36 hours, he was admitted to the university. So he had all the grades and everything. And that is how he was able to get that particular scholarship. And in Trinidad, and he has been loving maths all his life and has ideas. He got a degree in engineering. He has a scientific mind. He got an honors degree in engineering. He's a professional engineer who also loves maths and culture. It is in his DNA. Now, criticize him as much as you want about any particular decision which he may take. But for heaven's sake, do not do the ad hominem attacks as I've been hearing about. I haven't seen them, but I've heard about them, and I want to say that this young man is a highly skilled professional with a splendid scientific brain, a patriot, and who understands what he is doing. By all means, bring other ideas to the table, but he's certainly not an ignoramus, and he's certainly not in this business to feather his nest. And he should not be put into a position where he has to pay for himself to go to Trinidad to do the work of the CDC. That's the first. I want to clear that up, because when I was listening, I said to myself, how have we reached this point that a man who, P.John, who's chairman of the CDC, has to apologize if he is going to Trinidad paid by the CDC to do promotion? P.John?
I got you.
And leadership is about standing up, for what is right. And that's what I'm doing here this morning in this particular case. Now, how do we see, and certainly I as Prime Minister, how do I see Carnival? First of all, it has 3 dimensions. It's social, it's cultural, and economic. The social dimension, since the ancient days of Greece and Rome, and in all the civilizations, societies have to let off steam through festivals. And this festival is a big one for us. And P.John, you and Joel, you're working all the time, you're having all the pressures of life and living. You need to have some letting off of steam. You do it in a healthy manner, and it is a festival which brings, in addition to the social dimension and people gathering together and enjoying themselves healthily, there are some dimensions which are not healthy, but you can't control every single aspect of human behavior from the center. It is always a work in progress in human civilizations, but it is designed to have a healthy letting off of steam, and linked with the cultural dimensions of Pan, which is doing extremely well, Mass, Calypso, and Soca. And outside of the state-sponsored activities, there are private sector entities which do very good work, and the producers must be acknowledged, though sometimes they appear, some of them, as though they just want to be parasitic in relation to the carnival. And they themselves have to put back Mass men, certainly, in my encounters with them, made that point with crystal clarity and with unanimity. So and of course, if the carnival, in addition to the social and the cultural, um, Joel, could bring some money in by bringing tourists and Vincentians who want to come home to spend money in the hotels and to buy um, the food and drink and so on. By the way, I don't know, people talk about a lot of beer being had and strong drink at Carnival. You know, the brewery sells more beer at Christmas than at Carnival. Do you know that?
Yes.
The festival to celebrate the birth of Christ in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I know some people don't like when I talk things openly and honestly. You have more beer sold then by the brewery. In fact, you have licenses requested to bring in beer from overseas. More of them at Christmas than you have at Carnival. Those are the unvarnished facts. No, I make no comment other than that observation, P.John. Eh? I just state what the facts are. People can draw whatever conclusions they want from those facts. So those are the three dimensions: the social, the cultural, and the economic. Now, clearly, as everybody acknowledges, Carnival is a dynamic business, culture is a dynamic business, and it has to evolve. And wherever it appears to be anachronistic, that you must bring it into a stage where the elements which ought to be sustained blend with the new. Some may say, and I have heard Blondie Bird say it, Blondie Bird, who is a mass icon, says that he's very disappointed in the direction of the people who play in mass, and for the bands that they're interested in bikini feathers and beads, bikinis and feathers, and these mass bands, some of them they're made in Beijing rather than in Kingstown.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is a matter which the people in mass have to look at. It may well be that is what the revelers want, but still we have to maintain the creativity of the traditional mass of Blondie and Blondie Bird and Roy Ralph, etc., etc. The icons in this particular area and depicting things reflecting our life, our living, and our production, which is what Carnival is about. Pan, of course, has evolved immensely over the last 20 odd years. No, before 2001, you didn't have Panorama for about 5 years. And when we arrived in office, there were just 3 pan sides. The one, the Sand Hill Euphonium, the one for Vinlek Potential as it was then.
And Starlift.
And of course, Starlift. And Sand Hill Euphonium didn't have proper pans. We had to provide $35,000 for them to buy some new pans. And we had to. There was a group of persons in Eurythmics. They were a band without any pans, and we had to buy pans for them too out of Trinidad, and that's why in 2002 you had 3 pan sides: Starlift, Euphonium, Sinal Euphonium, and Eurythmics. Playing in Panorama, Gray decided not to play with his Vinlek Potential, which is now that pan side has gone the way of all flesh, and we see a new side in with a lot of young people in Caliacua, and they're doing very, very well.
Epic. Yeah.
Epic. No, I am. the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and through the national, by itself and through the national lottery, contributing immensely to the carnival and national lottery. We must always remember their own critical role and the way that organization has grown by leaps and bounds to help to support carnival. And it is true that CDC doesn't have the extent of the resources that some other entities do have. But it would be acknowledged that they have a sufficiency of resources, including when they have sponsors, that to produce, if to spearhead, really, not to produce, to spearhead a fantastic carnival. And I think we're going to have one in 2023 if everybody pull their weight together and stop this petty sniping about who going to Trinidad at carnival at CDC expense or who not going. That kind of parochial nonsense. We must pay no attention to it. And those who parade like that must be exposed for their pettiness and folly. And so I've stated what is the policy position of the government, and we will support. I want to say that something is, I see a new trend. It has been developing, and that is right and proper. As you know, on Carnival Monday and Tuesday especially, a lot of Christian churches go to the beaches. You know that?
Yes.
So that the Christians, there are Christians who play carnival.
Yeah.
Practicing Christians play carnival. But of course, a lot of practicing Christians prefer to go on the beach and have picnics during carnival because they want to stay away from what they consider worldly living. Well, if that is the case, all power to them. You know, but it's a society made up of different individuals with different sets of interests and different sets of orientations. And that is how it should be. We just do it all with love and tolerance for everybody. And let's hope we have a festival which is clean, which is orderly, which is disciplined, and which has creativity and where people can let off steam in great fun. And we welcome our visitors from across the region and across the world to join us in this magnificent celebration of our culture. It is true that other than one or two of the top Calypsonians, we have in a number of the Calypsonians have decided that I don't know for what purposes, or people who write for them, they decide that they think that the only thing which may give them a hearing, but it is only a very minor small hearing in a corner. If they just insist on singing, there's too much moderation in this nation and corruption and confusion. You know, you hear that you hear that rhyme, same here over and over and over. Nobody's going to pay to hear that. In fact, you may hear that better if Sinclair Leacock says it on a platform, which you hear for free in any case. So you hear it every day when Parliament is there. You hear it from the opposition benches. But you don't hear all the uplifting things, and you get the distortions of the truth in some of these things, because Calypsonians also must sing the truth. Truth must not be a casualty in Calypso, and you mustn't surround the truth by a battalion of lies. And when they also sing about the CDC, they may have frustration about you, but the frustration must not deny at the same time good work which the CDC is doing. So we must have a sense of balance on all of these things, and a mature reflection. And I'm hopeful that in the months coming up to Carnival, that we will cut out a lot of the petty sniping in every respect and focus our attention on having a beautiful festival. of which the government is strongly supportive.
Yeah, well, I would.
And yes,
I would.
that's the mouthful I want to say.
Yeah, well said. For a short while there, I thought that maybe in 2023 you might be singing a calypso.
No, but really, I mean, Joel, I mean, some of the fellas, and look, they have a lot of good young, I got a good young talent in all sorts of areas, and of course, we see much of it finding its expression in soca. People are talking in kind of in Trinidad, as you know it, Ricky, when you go down there in SE. People are asking whether the calypso art form is dying.
Correct.
Because you have a lot of the talented young people finding themselves going to soca because they think that it has better expression. I just heard a young man. I know there's a lot of these so on. I just heard a beautiful song. I listened it last week by a young man from up in Sharps called Chronicle. Wet Me Down. You know, celebrating Wet Fet now.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any double meaning. At first, when I saw Wet Me Down, I thought it had many double meanings, but as I listened it, it was a straightforward party song celebrating these kinds of these gatherings on all now who dancing and going to these wet fets. Yeah. Well, at least that's how I read it. That's how I heard it. I didn't hear anything else.
Mr. PM, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Yes. Now, the CDC is involved in the promotion of Vincy Mass, trying to get as many persons to come to St. Vincent, not particularly to attend the shows at Victoria Park, where they get their primary source of revenue at carnival time. It is for the benefit of everyone. Private promoters, hotels, whoever, person with a bar or restaurant, and so forth. So from the standpoint of the expenditure that the CDC has to put out, but they're not getting the revenue, is there any way that you could think of in which the CDC could be able to get back some of that to continue to promote Vincy Mass in the years ahead?
Well, I think what I've heard from Ricky and Essie there, and what I heard from them when they made a presentation to cabinet, is that they're looking for new forms, using new media and new platforms for revenue, including the filming these activities, editing them properly, packaging them, selling them, make sure that they're copyrighted properly, because the legislative is there. That's one area. One of the things you always have to do is the form in which it is presented, the structures in which they're presented, to have them more appealing to a much wider audience than hitherto. And by the way, the Carnival Development Committee Corporation Act doesn't prohibit any of that. On the contrary, among the aims and objectives, they can do all of these things. They can find new ways for the revenue.
And certainly that they can strike alliances with private promoters and do a number of things.
Absolutely. There's nothing to stop all of that. Joel, if you go back and revisit the Carnival Development Corporation Act, in which I was very intimately involved in helping to draw up, using legal skills, in addition to just being policy, because there were 3 lawyers who were dealing with it. That's Pet Seeley, who was the draftsperson, Rene Batiste was then the Minister of Culture, and myself. And on weekends, 3 of us worked on the law and found this balance. It's a very nice balance which you have there. I mean, of course, from the time it is made, maybe you have to make some changes to the law, reforms and the like. maybe promoters, some of the private promoters should be involved in on the CDC. There should be space also on the CDC for the entities to function, for the CDC to function properly. I listened to Ricky very carefully, and he spoke about when P.John asked the question, and he says the president of the Masters Bands Association, President of the Calypso, Steel Band, and so on, the Yulupan movement. Those organizations themselves must work in a structured manner, in an organized manner, reflective of the concerns of their members. Because sometimes, if they don't function like that, he or she who comes to the CDC board as the representative may not on occasions be representing fully the views of their members. But the members have to be involved. The members just can't be just individualistic. And when they hear about a decision, they start to quarrel about it. That's not how organizations function. If you're part of an organization, P.John, you have to have the responsibility, the part of your obligation to attend the meetings and to make your inputs. Because if only a few people attend and decisions are then taken and you don't like them, you can't be heard to be complaining. You have an opportunity to participate.
Correct.
So that's all part of it. And by the way too, sometimes when I hear people talk about the CDC and how it functions, they want the CDC in every particular decision which they are making before they do anything, before they move. They must get the approval of every single person who is involved in this. This is not Greek city-state democracy. This is a representative structure. I mean, by analogy, Joel, you will have a say in which motor vehicle you would want to be driven in, and at the speed at which you should be driven, and the way in which you should be driven, save and except in certain exigencies. And if in particular exigencies, the executive have to act in a manner, that is to say, to continue the analogy, to mash the brakes to prevent an accident. You can't be holding a consultation about mashing the brakes.
True.
Eh?
That's correct.
While you're doing the driving. Of course, analogy is not always the best form of reasoning, but it is indicative of the point that I want to make, that you have a broad consensus, but there are particular things you would have to leave as they are implemented on an ongoing basis, to the good judgment of people who are in the executive. Otherwise, organizations would never get anything done. You'll be paralyzed.
Paralysis.
And if you have a different view, there's more than one source or channel through which you can express that view. You don't have to go on the radio every Monday morning and beat down the CDC for one reason or another. As Ricky Adams said a short while ago, I mean, there's so many ways in which you can communicate with him and with Desi.
But that's the point. Well, that's why I decided to give the background of Ricky, and to put to bed the enormous lie that somehow he or persons on the CDC board making some living off of CDC. The man not even get the stipend. I mean, who, unless you're a patriot, why? For what?
Exactly.
Joel?
Yes, exactly. And then person should commend him and the others for that, for what they do over the years.
Absolutely. So I don't know if you have any other query which you want to ask me, because I know your program coming to an end shortly.
No, we thank you very much for your contribution, and we wish you all the best in Caracas.
I hope to come back tomorrow morning. There's quite a gathering here, actually.
Okay.
Function last evening, which I attended. I came in yesterday evening, and we have to remember the solidarity of President Chavez with us in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and in the Caribbean and in Latin America, and indeed globally. He's a man, an extraordinary human being, and I'm very pleased that I live to have interacted with him, and many of his very admirable ideas are still very much alive. You know, for instance, the deepening of Latin American and Caribbean integration, and his selflessness. But the ALBA Bank and all the assistance given to countries in the Caribbean, including St. Vincent and Grenadines, including the Argyle International Airport.
Sounds like a modern day Bolivar.
Yeah, absolutely a modern day Bolivar, no question about it. All right, and that St. Vincent and Grenadines, we have an obligation to. That's also why we are involved in CELAC at the leadership level. I mean, we were there from the beginning. I was there in Bahia in 2008. Lula and I are the only two remaining. President Lula in Brazil, you were the only two remaining from the beginning. And Maduro was there as foreign minister in Venezuela, from Venezuela. But in terms of leaders, it's just President Lula and myself. Of course, I've been there continuously since 2008. Though CELAC was formed in 2010, 2011, but the origin of it was from a meeting in Bahia, in Brazil, which Lula had summoned. And incidentally, if you look at our 2020 manifesto, we spoke to the issue of deepening the integration movement through the Association of Caribbean States, and which includes those washed by the Caribbean Sea from the Caribbean and Latin America, and also CELAC, the Community of States of Latin America and the Caribbean. And P.John, if you elect me on that manifesto, that's my bond with you. Therefore, for persons who say, well, what Ralph doing with gone there is, you want to strengthen his CV, his curriculum vitae. No, Heavenly Father, I'm only strengthening my CV if I'm looking for a job elsewhere. When I'm finished with this, I don't have any other job to go and get other than to go up to Goss and write and give up my experiences and knowledge and hopefully wisdom. Eh?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
God bless.
Okay, all the best.
All right, PM.
Thank you very much, PM.
I just want to say that rest assured that the CDC is not distracted by the rhetoric, but we continue to work resolutely towards the execution of what we think would be a fantastic Vincimas 2023.
Yes, Ricky, and just remember what I said up front.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you,
God
PM.
bless.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, PM.
All right. I think we have come to that time, so I'll allow you, gentlemen, a few closing remarks.
Well, I would like to end by saying, I started by saying thank you, and I want to end by saying thank you to WEFM. Also, on reflection of the Trinidad promotion done during Trinidad Carnival, Skinny Fabulous did an awesome job representing St. Vincent and the Grenadines well, not just in song and simply being a Vincent and performing, but by his utterances while on stage during such performances. He was constantly reminding persons that he's from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He was reminding persons that Vincimas is on the horizon after Trinidad is St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we would like to thank him for the promotions done while in Trinidad. Also, Jehovah promoted brunch and soca in Trinidad for the first time. And for first time entrant into Trinidad and Tobago, it was a very successful event. The patrons came, enjoyed themselves. It was well executed. Vincy Mas was welcomed to the promotions there. I would like to thank Hoover and his team for that opportunity to promote Vincy Mas at the event. And I'm just saying that, letting the public know that he has offered to assist with the promotion of Vincy Mas at other carnivals that he'll be hosting brunch and soca events. He normally do Spice Mass, Grenada, St. Lucia, and other places. So much thanks to Hoover for that. And I'm hoping that other promoters will do likewise and offer to assist with the promotion of Vincy Mas, because as I mentioned before, when we go out to promote promoters events, St. Vincent and the Grenadines Carnival is an entire package. So thank you to Hoover and the rest of the team. Thanks to all for listening.
All right. I just want to say, we at the CDC are continuing to work. We believe that 2023 is going to be a good year for us. The feedback that we've had on the ground is that the hotels are receiving a lot of booking requests. The mass bands are beginning to receive requests for costumes. I know some of them are going to be launching soon. I know Panorama is going to be launching soon. I imagine the Calypso tents are shortly going to be announcing when they're going to be having their tents and their shows. And we're already seeing there's a resurgence in the Monday band activity. We're seeing a number of them coming back online, etc. So we're really anticipating a good Vincy Mas. We still owe some people some money. I'm really happy to hear the PM say that the approval has been granted for us to be able to proceed along those lines. And we've been apologizing to people for the long period of time that it has taken for us to be able to settle some of our bills. We're going to be having a meeting this week. We scheduled for Tuesday, and out of that, I anticipate we'll have some announcements in terms of some of the scheduling of the shows, etc. We anticipate that a lot of our signature shows will remain where they are, but there should be some innovations and some changes. On the whole Trinidad promotion leg of things, I particularly want to thank Synergy. There's actually a Vincentian working at Synergy who's said to us, he said, "Man, I don't know if you all know, but Synergy is like family to CDC." So we're really happy that we've been able to work with them over the years, and really we're getting out the message. People from outside are hearing the message. We're getting a lot of positive feedback. It is for us as a nation now to unite and continue to send the message to people that Vincy Mas is in fact the hottest carnival in the Caribbean, and the heat comes from our energy and our warmth as a people, because at the end of it, we're doing it, as I said, not for the CDC, but for the people and the nation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So thank you guys for having us here again.
Yeah, great. I just want to use a word that the Prime Minister used a short while ago, that there's no doubt about the role that the CDC has in spearheading the execution and the development of Vincy Mas, and to create this distinctive and unique product of which we spoke earlier on for the years ahead. I just wanted to make one quick interjection with regard to the song Come Home by Skinny Fabulous and Nyla Blackman up front. That I forgot to indicate earlier on that the person who mastered this song wonderfully as well is Parry Jack, another Vincentian, and so on. But what I would like to see in closing is that whilst Skinny Fabulous, and you can't take anything at all away from Skinny here, he continues to do a fantastic job, Problem Child as well. And there are others out there to a lesser extent who are promoting Vincy Mas on stage and off stage, right? And to support as well, working in tandem with the CDC. What I would like to see, however, is that to ensure the success of Vincy Mas in the future, that we still need one or two more Skinny Fabulouses and Problem Childs on the international stage. Just like how you had the British invasion in the mid-1960s, we can actually ensure that. And what I would suggest is to see whether or not these two gentlemen here in the studio can actually meet with other private producers and promoters to go and focus on young talent and see how we can get them up to a particular level for including for Vincy Mars 2023 and then going forward. If we can work together and say, hey, we have 2 or 3 more artists with fantastic potential, and we are going to put them out there for the benefit of themselves and for Vincy Mars in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. This is WEFM. You have been listening to It's Your Hand. We have now come to the end of our program. Today we look primarily at promoting Vincy Mars. And with us, we had the chairman of the Carnival Development Corporation, Mr. Ricky Adams, the marketing officer, Mr. Ezzy Roberts, and former chairman, Mr. Joel Providence. I am P.John on behalf of Cecil, Kieran, and the rest of the studio. Good evening and see you next week.